following conditions as prescribed.
So move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Alec, you're gonna recuse yourself,
Yep.
because we're gonna do, Merrimack College.
For the record, I'm recusing on this. Thank you.
And we should do the enforcement order first.
Yep, yep,
Get out of order here.
yep, okay. So Merrimack College. EO.
That was issued last meeting,
Huh?
yeah? That was issued last meeting.
2 meetings ago. Yep. So we're going to take the EO up first so we can put that to bed and then move on with the NOI. So the commission will recall issuing an enforcement order at its September 13th meeting when it was discovered that work had started without a permit. Commission suspended its review of the NOI and issued an enforcement order requiring fines starting the day of the small project permit, which was denied on August 16th, and to end on the 13th that day, totaling $2,900. The fine has been paid, so, and that was the only directive in that enforcement order, aside from cease work, which work has not gone on since, so I think you can lift that enforcement order now.
Okay. Any questions on the enforcement order, Jack?
No.
Joe?
No questions.
All
No
right.
questions.
Motion?
Move that we vacate the enforcement order for Merrimack College, 242-1874.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. All right, now for the NOI. 242-1874, Merrimack, 315 Turnpike Street, Merrimack College.
Okay. All right, so the commission will recall this project involves installation of a video display board at the southern end of Duane Stadium. And the board will be mounted on a below-grade reinforced cast-in-place concrete footing that spans 11 by 32, and that will be placed outside the 50-foot no-build zone. From the footing, 3 concrete pedestals will extend up approximately 6 inches above grade and support the steel vertical beams on which the board will be mounted. Electrical conduits will be provided, and a new 4x7 pad will be installed, but outside of the 50, and a shallow trench approximately 18 inches wide, 24 inches deep will be dug using mini excavator in which the conduit will be placed. They have submitted a request for a waiver for earth disturbing activities in the 50. However, no structures are going to be in the 50. So I'm thinking, they don't really need a waiver to, operate machinery and then return the area to pre-existing lawn area, but you guys can talk about that. And that's...
So the
that's
structure
it.
doesn't require a waiver?
Right. Right. And Jeff with VHB is with us this evening, representing the college. If you have questions for him.
Yeah,
I think it means it's outside the 50.
Yeah.
Permanent installation.
Right.
So all disturbance is temporary within the 50-foot no build?
Correct.
Okay. I watched there was a energized meeting last time you guys talked about this, and I understand where we are. I just have one question for you. One of your representatives represented that they were remorseful of how the project went, that the cart was put before the horse, that construction started before approval, and that it won't happen again. What I didn't hear was what went wrong, and I'd like to understand a little bit about, what went wrong. Good, I'm glad you're here, Felipe.
I think based on, for the record, Felipe Schwartz, Merrimack College. I think what went wrong was just a series of bad communication, right? We have a vendor with a contractor that got ahead of themselves. And they went ahead and did stuff that, in hindsight, I should have had a closer view of what they were doing, but it's a crazy time of year when it happened. So as it was going, I should have been there. So that's what went wrong.
So lack of control of the project schedule.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Yeah, in terms of just when it was happening and how it was happening.
How's it going to be corrected?
Oh, it's
No, I mean in future projects.
yeah,
'Cause,
absolutely. No, it's a good.
Assuming Merrimack College comes before us again, how are you going to operate differently?
I have committed to being very more hands-on on such matters, and I've made it known to many people that I work around and work for people that work for us. I don't, like I said in that
Yeah,
meeting, I
okay.
don't take this lightly, and
That's all
I'm
you
very
got.
sorry.
All right. I have no other questions, actually.
Okay. Like I said, I reflect what Jack said, and I would hope in the future that because now we're going to be looking at you through a magnifying glass.
Yep. Appreciate
Just so
that.
you know.
Yep.
Joe?
Yeah, I said all I needed to say on that front at the last meeting, that they were before us. The dewatering filters, and now we asked specifically for them, so you've added them. But what I'm seeing is that you have them located in an area pretty far away, except what I'm concerned with is that you literally have them dewatering discharge to existing closed drainage system, which is a point source directly to a wetland. You can't do that. You've defeated the whole purpose of putting it up to a dry, isolated area by connecting it to the drain system. So again, this is a stopgap, should it be needed. What I need is some understanding of how you're gonna contain it up in the grass, not let it get into the drainage system, and how you're gonna clean up the grass when that's done. And if there is a release to the drainage system, how you're gonna clean the pipe out. So I think you've attempted to give us what we need, but you haven't. In fact, just the opposite. I think you've created a point source, a potential for point source discharge. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because there was some thought that it may not even be necessary. So just be prepared for that because we'll probably condition it. Sure. Okay, as part of pre-construction, pre-construction, post-pre-construction. I don't know what to call it, they've already started. But everything else, I think it's what we've asked for, so it's what we need, but that's a little shortcoming on that. I don't think we need to continue. I think we can specifically condition that be submitted prior to the work gets started. I'm all set.
I have no additional questions.
Just one.
Yes.
One thing I did forget to mention. The last time this was discussed before the commission, I know Tony, who was sitting where Ryan is now, was identified an area on the plan where mitigation plantings would serve a benefit, or he felt it would serve a benefit. Or is any mitigation plantings proposed under the revised plan?
I don't think they have, but we're happy to include them if that's what the commission would like.
So we could condition them if we chose to, or if we felt it would enhance our buffer zone functioning.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to get that on the record.
Sure,
So-
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would have to be done by Amy. You'd have to look at that to see if there was a mitigation area that you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think
Are
Tony
you
was,
familiar with what Tony?
yeah,
the
Tony was
spot?
pointing to the area that's on the wetland side of the fence, on the opposite side of the fence, closest to the wetland where there's some, open area that could use some vegetation.
Yeah, we should do that.
In here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I mean, I guess the other question, would you be okay with it being along the roadway as well? And as opposed to behind the video board, there's just, I don't know, there's something about the wetland planting that is nice to see and nice as people come onto campus. And there's an area there right at where, yeah, exactly.
Right here?
Right in that area. Just a thought.
yeah. How does snow get managed, I guess? Just be concerned if they, if that's a little area, if it's an area where,
True, yeah. I mean, we don't pile it there, but
pile it there, right?
it's just part of,
That would probably prevent snow stockpiling in that area.
yeah,
That's
we
true.
wouldn't stockpile snow in that area anyway.
Okay,
Okay, so we can condition that, and Amy can direct plantings and location.
Yeah.
okay, great.
Okay, so Amy, you're saying that they don't need a waiver, correct?
No.
Because the only way I say
Well,
that,
'cause there's
because I don't see an alternatives analysis on this.
Right, no, because
So-
structures are out of the 50.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Motion?
Move that we close and issue decision within 21 days.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hopefully I'll see them.
Justine, is Al right there?
Is Al right there?
Things.
You're good. Happy with the number?
Thank you.
Yep. Forget about him out there.
Back right popular. Next one is 242-1876, 492 Sutton Street.
Good evening, members of the commission. Francisco Urena for the record. Lawrence Municipal Airport. With me is Randy Christensen, who came from retirement, is retired, and is here today to display this notice of intent and explain it to you in detail. Randy?
Yeah, I have, as you know, kind of a long history with the airport, and this enforcement order, or friendly enforcement order, whatever we've called it, predated my retirement, and been involved with Dominic Zazzaro, who is here, who's the engineer from Stantec Consulting Services, and thought it best to bring my tenure with the airport and interest and participation in the project along with me, and just make sure it's communicated to you and the public correctly. I have a long history with this project and a lot of other projects on the airport that also have pertinence in this case. And so I'll be with Dom and Francisco through this process. We know that this project will likely, almost definitely go to third-party review. There certainly is a process. I've been through this with the commission before, how long it takes to identify a scope, get somebody on board, work out scope and fee and all those other things. So there's often a delay associated with going that route. And so what I thought tonight would be appropriate is give a good base knowledge to the what abutters are here and to the commission, the purpose and need of the project, location, and the general principles, the strong general principles that we have identified in our plan set to try to address the problem. With that, we expect through the comments from abutters, some of which have been received, and certainly substantial comments that will be received from third-party review, as it always is. We expect some changes, additional information, et cetera, to be generated out of that process. So I think with a good base knowledge and certainly abutters providing their take on the matter, we can all go away, work out that third-party review process and get that in motion. So what I'd like to do is we've provided Amy with a number of slides that hopefully will walk us through this good base knowledge of the project, and we'll go from there. And so in front of us right now, we have a site locus, and basically just to show that we are at the south or west end of the airport. That is the runway 5 end. And the importance of the runway 5 end in this particular situation is that when the runway was built or the airport was built, it ended up with a stream being routed around the furthest extent of the fill. There's a similar stream on the north side or the east side of the airport that goes around the other runway end. This is very typical of what we see at airports. And this particular stream was the subject of an extensive notice of intent filed with the Commission in 2016. It was for the runway safety area project for runway 523, at which time that runway end that you see in the locus was actually extended further to the south, but not extended to the point where we couldn't relocate that stream around the end of the new fill. And so we have recently completed a project, not only permitted with this commission and with the other permitting agencies, but we completed its construction of an actual relocated stream, complete with plantings, wetland restorations, and things like that. And the importance of that is it demonstrates that what we are actually proposing in this plan set has been done very recently at the airport. It's a very similar design. This one's a bit more aggressive, but it's something we have done quite recently and done quite successful. And that design has actually passed muster with a lot of severe storms that have had occurred recently. And so it kind of instills a lot of confidence on our end that what we're actually proposing here can work and that the sequence of events, the construction sequence that we proposed is the right one because it worked so well for us on the 2016 project. Next one, Amy.
Sure.
Of importance with this particular locus is it not only shows our extended runway end, and you can see the gray riprap that is our steep 2-on-1 slope at the end of our safety area, but it also shows the stream that was relocated around that fill area. It also shows Matthews Way, which I know there are some folks from Matthews Way subdivision here this evening, and so Matthews Way is prominently shown where Amy is showing there. And then we have Charles Street running up and down at the very end of this photo. And so it basically shows some of the people, some of the folks involved here, but it shows the layout of that runway end as it currently exists. The USGS actually predates some of the topographical changes that you see right here. And then you see a lot of stub streets going along Sutton Street, and these stub residential streets basically go almost the entire length of the airport, almost up to the airport entrance road. And these are a bit of the subject of this notice of intent as well. And so this picture provides a good locus for those involved to see the entire general area that we're talking about. The stream segment that we are most concerned with is the bend in the stream, and it is right at the end of Grosvenor Way, right there. Amy, thank you very much. It's right there at the perimeter security fence where the stream takes an abrupt turn and then heads in general to the west. And so that is the focus of the area. Next, please. Mm-hmm. The enforcement order issued over a year ago now included, and I called it a friendly enforcement order. It allowed the airport to immediately get in there and put some temporary provisions in place. The overall purpose and need for this project is that we have a stream channel that has gradually lost elevation due to debris, vegetation, what have you, sedimentation. And now the bank height at this particular location, and this is pretty much the problem location. You'll see the stream on the left right there, and this is looking upstream. We have lost so much bank height there that the storm events, without that core log that you see in the foreground there, is subject to overtopping at the bank right there. And this is the section. So above this section, you have bank heights, and below this section, you have incredible bank heights. You have 2-3 feet, even more of bank height below this section. But for this particular section, you have bank heights foot and a half, less than that some points. Does not take much for all the urban runoff that we get to this stream and the flashy nature, and then some of the storms that we've experienced lately, for this to overtop. And as we looked back or recall that aerial photograph that you saw, any water overtopping this portion of the bank does flow generally to the west-southwest and does encumber portions of the Matthews Way subdivision drainage system and also business along Charles Street as well. And so the friendly enforcement order that was issued had two things: put something temporary in place that would limit that overtopping. And these core mesh logs, we had a lot of experience with them. We put them in place, and they've done a really good job. Once they get wet, they hug the ground and put water back in its place, and they've done a pretty tremendous job. And we put it for a good length along this portion of the stream. But we amended the enforcement order, I think twice. We actually diverted more flow to this stream up at a red maple swamp above this channel to try to get more flow into here, because there's still flow beyond the airport property line that is getting down and causing some of the issues that have been voiced, some of the concerns that have been voiced to us and to the commission over this past year. And so these core logs have been employed in several locations, not only increase bank height, but to divert flows and keep them in this stream and hopefully not add to the problem that is being experienced downstream from this. Next, Amy. And this is looking downstream at about that, just up from right at the Big Bend. You can see the airport fill platform, the green grass in the upper right. The left is the airport security fence. We're right along the airport property line at this point. And this basically shows the diffuse nature of the channel. The channel has really been lost as far as wood debris, sedimentation. It has filled in, and our bank height is almost nil at this particular location. Next, Amy. And then a close-up where the stream is right against the airport property line, actually exposing one of our concrete bollards supports for the perimeter security fence. And something to note here is that this stream immediately to the right or on the south and west sides is completely bordering vegetated wetland for most of the route along our work area, whereas on the airport side we have bank, but we don't have bordering vegetated wetland. That comes into play pretty significantly here when we talk about the design. Next. And one more, again, just showing here's a place upstream where you actually have some bank height. You see the bank against the fence right there, and you actually have a little bit of topography there that throws that water back in play, but it's quickly lost, and that's where we started the core log. As soon as we lost our freeboard, we started that core log and made a temporary bank while we get this design in order and construction underway. Next. The enforcement order was amended one more time after the significant storm events of August, and silt fence has now been added to even try to do more to keep flows within this waterway while we go through the design and construction process. And I think everybody remembers August quite well, and this particular location experienced the same level of impact and disaster that most of the town experienced. And so that silt fence was put in by airport staff after the amended enforcement order remains in place. As part of that amended enforcement order, we have been ordered to conduct observations during and immediately after significant storm events. So far, I believe 32 such reports have been provided to the commission, complete with photos. We've gotten to know the watershed pretty good by going out there during these events. I think it's added to the design. I think it's fallen mostly on Dom and Francisco's shoulders to do that. It's a lovely time to be out there. It seems like it rains on the weekends mostly too, and at night, but that's the way it goes. But those have contributed to the design quite a bit. We got to know the watershed pretty well. Nothing improves your knowledge of stormwater like watching it rain, watching where that water is coming from. And so there is a collection of stormwater reports on file with the commission that are available for anybody who wants to see them. Next, please. So the important parts of our plan, this is a nice generalized list, and I actually put a nice 1, 2, 3 summary at the start of the notice of intent, what the major components are. I'm going to just go over those components real quick.
Chairman, can we pause for about 2 minutes and ask a question? Just I want to form a basis for where Randy might go with design. So you did gain a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, empirical data by seeing it happen is very valuable.
No doubt.
There's been a lot of thought, a lot of concern that the source of the problem is multifold. It's the airport, it's the side streets, it's up above town roadways. Based on your observations, are you able to attribute this discussion we're about to ensue to address all of those, or just those things that are originating from the airport?
No, it'll address the airport's issues and portions of the off-property ones,
Okay, thank you.
but not all, definitely not all. That would take almost a master planning type effort on behalf of the town, some private residential properties, and the airport. Would be quite the undertaking. But no, I think that what you'll hear that we have in place definitely takes care of our airport water, adds some of that residential water, gets it, maintains it into our stream, and more importantly, makes this channel able to gives it a volume capacity to withstand some of those larger theoretical storm events.
Thank you very much.
So, first off, there is an existing stormwater outfall at the head of the system. It's a 24-inch outfall. It currently drains approximately 15.5 acres of land on the airport property. There on the plan, it's called the existing concrete head wall to be removed and relocated. And so what you'll see there is that water is let into the stream above that hot corner, as I'll call it, the problem corner where we're seeing the overtopping. We want to take that water from that, which is all stormwater. There's no base trickle coming out of there. It doesn't have a base groundwater flow coming out of it or anything like that. It's dry or it's wet, depending on storm events, and that's it. And what we want to do is take that peak runoff that particular culvert end adds to. We want to route it around the problem area. It would be a significant undertaking if we didn't have conveniently a temporary bypass culvert, a heavy-duty one, that we had put in for the 2016 project. If you recall, we put a temporary culvert in to contain the flows to give our relocated stream in 2016 a chance to grow in. Erosion control fabric is one thing, but if you're trying to do soft solutions, you got to get that vegetation to grow before you dump some of these heavy flows into it. So we put in a large 30-inch bypass culvert that we used to direct the high flows into while the relocated channel in 2016 got vegetated. And it worked perfectly. That thing is just sitting there now, a lot of public expense. It was a class 4 culvert because we had so much fill on top of it. It's a heavy-duty culvert, and it's a 30-inch one. It's a good size one. We have the ability to reroute our 24-inch culvert above the problem area to downstream of the problem area by putting it in that culvert. It takes 15.5 acres immediately out of the watershed of the problem area. And it's stormwater that we're taking out of there. Like I said, there's no base flow that's maintaining a wetland vegetation or anything like that. This is an outfall that flows after storm events, and that's it. So we'll be taking that storm flow and just putting it downstream of the problem area. So that we're intercepting that with a manhole, and we're taking that outfall out, including the head wall, and we're going to revegetate that with inland bank. Core logs, loam backfill, live stakes and stickers, turn it back into vegetated bank at that location.
Where does that ultimately discharge? Is it over by the culvert underneath the railroad tracks?
Yes, so there's two downstream culverts that, when we talk about dumping more water into this stream, I want everyone to remember, this stream doesn't leave airport property and go right into the Merrimack River. There is the sewage treatment plant culverts under their entrance road, a nice double culvert, heavy duty, has always withstood all these hard storms, but it is there and it is theirs. And then right below that is a less heavy duty one under the railroad tracks, in a very thick, nasty place to get to. But there are two owners of other drainage structures downstream from us that we have to consider during this whole process.
I have a question. I'm one of the owners,
Hold on one second. We're going to take questions from residents as soon as the presentation is done, if you don't mind holding on.
Sure.
Thank you.
So the first big effort here, and this is one that was added late, was putting that series of manholes and pipes in on the upland green slope, putting it down, getting the slope necessary to get the water to that 30-inch bypass culvert and putting it in there, restoring it all to the same green grass slope as it is right now. And so that is the first effort. The 225 feet of the stream that will be rehabilitated, it will be the basic cross-section for the rehabilitated stream is a 4-foot bottom contour, flat bottom contour. Then going up on 3-to-1 side slopes on either side, creating a minimum of a 3-foot high bank along that section. Some of them meet grade and you get higher banks because the natural contour provides for them. But for this section where we really need it, we want to make a bank height that contains the higher theoretical storm events. And this particular profile obtains that control for us. It is very similar, that cross-section, to the cross-section we used in the channel that reroutes around the runway 5 end from the 2016 project. And so, again, that basic, typical profile through the stream is a 4-foot bottom section, 3-to-1 slopes going up each side to a minimum bank height of about 3 feet. Now, to do that, as you can see, the blue right there is all wetland. And so on the opposite side of the stream, if we tried to make that bank, it would have entirely been in bordering vegetated wetland. We would have been into thousands of square feet of impact to BVW, off-site mitigation, all the things that we went through for the Runway 5 project. We were fortunate that on the opposite side, there was very little vegetated wetland. It was just bank and then it was upland. So we actually shifted the stream a little bit towards the airport to provide for that bank height that we needed, only impacting 155 square feet of BVW. Also, if we tried to do it on the other side, the airport perimeter security fence, which is on the property line right there, we're dealing with property line issues very close right there as well. And so by shifting it, we take a little bit of the bend out of it. We're also able to fit it in with minimizing wetland impacts, so kind of a win-win in that particular instance. We also take into consideration that doing something like this, the best alternative would have been, from a drainage standpoint, let's load this thing with hard armor. Let's put Marafi fabric in there that'll last 100 years, big 6-inch surge stone, 100% compaction of very dense gravel on the bottom, and let's make this thing be able to handle anything. Well, you try that with the permitting agencies, you included. We are always trying to look at soft solutions. Can we get away with something that restores the functions and values and meets the performance standards, but still addresses our purpose and need? This particular instance, using aggressive, though biodegradable, aggressive erosion control fabrics on the bottom, less aggressive once we get up to the top, and a combination of plantings, we can achieve that aggressive, stable platform that we're looking for, but we need time. Just like we did with the 2016 project, we need a minimum of 3, more likely 5 growing seasons worth of growth of the live stakes and stickers to get the adequate shrub root density that we need to stabilize this thing. And so the next feature of this project is that temporary interception of the entire stream in a 30-inch culvert, upgradient of our work area, and putting it in this bypass pipe and keeping it there while we let this thing grow in for a few growing seasons, and then restoring it back. It's a sandbag dam. We're actually using the head wall that we take from the 24-inch culvert. We're using that head wall for the temporary pipe right at that location, have a nice stable entrance to it. The sandbag dam will divert everything into it. And then even on the back side of that, if we were to get something significant or we get seepage through it, we've allowed for a pump station, a designed pump station to pump into that same manhole to prevent leakage. Trying to work as much in the dry as possible, and then just let enough water through to let the seed and the live stakes and stickers grow, but those high bypass flows all get into our bypass situation until we deem it stabilized. And so that's a very important part of this feature. The project is that temporary bypass. We have areas of collapsed bank, upgradient of our workstations. So you'll see on that plan about station 4+0 upstream, so going to station 5, in that section, we have sections of collapsed bank. What we don't need is to do this project and end up with another yard, 2 yards, 25 yards of sediment in our newly created stream profile. And so as a part of this, we want to take some of those core mesh logs, some of this erosion control fabric, and try to protect those and revegetate those bank scars that we have in that 100-foot section above the work area. So it's basically bank repair. May have to hand clip some vegetation and things like that, get the core mesh logs in there, backfill with suitable material, and then put our live stakes and stickers in there along with wetland seed mix and really mat it real well, staple it, and let it grow up and repair those bank scars. And so we're not contributing sediment to something that we just created. And so that is a part of it as well. And then finally, we have to meet the performance standards. I have 155 square feet of vegetated wetland that is being impacted by this particular design. We also have a few bank features that are deemed important to wetlands wildlife that were investigated as part of the wildlife habitat assessment mandated for this project. And so to replace those, we do require wetland plantings, and there is an extensive wetland plantings proposed for the entire section, the 225 linear feet of stream redesign and maintenance. We will be planting both banks above the base flow line with those shrub live stakes and stickers. We had the most luck with red osier dogwood and a couple of willow species on the last project. We'll probably use the same ones. We had a couple species we put in there, didn't do as well, so we'll probably just limit it to the two that worked so well on the 2016 project. So in a nutshell, we have 225 linear feet of stream that we are redesigning and rehabilitating. We have about 100 feet of bank upstream that we are trying to repair any bank scars that we have. This leaves approximately 150 linear feet of natural stream channel between the end of our project and the start of the relocated stream from the 2016 project. We have investigated that cross-section. It has extremely tall banks on this west and south side of it. Has never seen it overtopping during any of the events. We tie into that large contour, that large mound that we have along that side of the bank. We see no reason to take this any further. It would seem a logical conclusion that since we're creating a new profile here, match it to the profile that we created in 2016 and just join the two. We just didn't see any net benefit in that, number one. And number two, we're supposed to be minimizing our wetland impact footprint, and we just don't have the drive, the purpose and need to address that 150 feet below our project. So we will not be doing anything with that. We didn't see any backwater effect from that area too. It has the dense vegetation and everything like that, but it's stable. We don't have the bank erosion in that section, and we just didn't see any backwater effect from it that's causing us to rethink not going down further. So we think this 225 linear feet is enough. So you can go on to the next one, Amy. And this is it in plan form. Shows all the contours that we have to recreate on this project. But if you go on to, in this picture, you see the grading scheme. You see the sandbag dam upstream of the project with the pump station and the temporary bypass pipe. You see the removal of the 24-inch existing stormwater outfall. And then on the other end of the project, you see where we're going to put a drain manhole over the existing pipe around the 5 end. So that last manhole in the chain there is going right on top of that 30-inch pipe that we put in 2016 and get that water in there. It would be an obvious question, what's going on at the end of that 30-inch culvert there? When we did the 2016 project, we found in the field that our limit of impact that we mitigated for, et cetera, we never got to that point. They were able to daylight this pipe even a little bit short of that. So we actually had some really good riprap pad that we were able to put in there. Some of this riprap's quite large. It's 10-inch, 12-inch, even a little bit bigger than that. This thing has been stable through all the storms that we went through since 2016. It's a great stable outfall, shows no erosion whatsoever, and the channel immediately downgrading from it is not showing any wear or anything like that either. So this stormwater, which is currently getting to that location, is just going to get it to it a little bit closer at this point. We didn't have any concern with the condition of that outfall being able to handle this subtle change that is occurring here. So, next one, Amy. The total area of work, as we look at the grading and what we need to do, that is the crosshatched area. And the crosshatched area actually represents erosion control fabric that we are going to line all of our graded areas with. We are working on slopes here, so we're not going to rely on just hydroseed or anything like that. We're going to be using the biodegradable SC125 by North American Green to line these areas and contain our hydroseed underneath that. That footprint that you see right there is less than a half acre. So just to provide the commission with some scale, that is less than a half acre of area that we're actually working with. That number becomes important because as soon as you get to an acre of disturbance, you start getting into other environmental permits. 402, Federal Clean Water Act 402 with the NIPD's permits, and even in your land disturbance permit here in town, an acre means something for your local permits as well. So I just want to let everyone know that we're even under a half acre with this particular design that we have right now. Next, Amy. You can go on. The typical cross-section as we show right there, you'll see the 4 feet on the bottom, 3-to-1 side slopes to either meet grade or have that top embankment height. And then you'll see the core, 12-inch core fiber logs installed at a certain elevation. We have the heavy compacted gravel under a certain part of it. We do bring topsoil on top of that compacted gravel down to a certain elevation. And after the SC, the long-term erosion control fabric in the critical areas, above that we have the real biodegradable C125 above that to let the other seed mix grow. So it's a real hodgepodge of overlapping fabrics and staples. Those core logs are integral in holding that erosion control fabric down. And then you have the stakes and stickers that we stick right through these meshes that hold it down as well. So between the staple pattern, the plantings, and then obviously the weight of those core logs, that's what we rely on for the stabilization of the cross-section. If you can go down a little bit there.
Yep.
Amy. And then we also are going to be using a pyramid scheme to repair bank sections upstream. We're going to be using the heavy fabric, put it underneath a trio of core logs, put that fabric up onto the bank and staple it, and then we are going to stick some live stakes and stickers behind that, trying to get some roots growing, some wetland shrubs growing in behind those bank sections. But those core logs, once they're wet, they will buffer that area from direct flows while those areas stabilize. I won't get into that one right now, Amy. We'll go on to the next. And then this is just the specification for our live stakes and stickers, how we put them in, the spacing and things like that. And it's the same specification that we used in 2016. If we do need to discharge any muddy water from the site, we will have provisions in our specifications for the basic filter bag on top of sediment. There's nowhere to put this stuff. We are at the bottom of the watershed, and so we're going to need something pretty aggressive to get sediment out, not just a silt fence ring. So we will put in the specifications something as aggressive as this with filter bags like we've used before that do a good job, just require change out pretty often. And so we just want to make sure addressing the erosion sedimentation control portion of the stormwater standards that we are including some high-end things of that nature. And you can go down.
Next one,
Keep
or-
going, yeah. Yeah, we'll keep going. That doesn't translate well to this situation. Go down to the next one. So the cross sections that you'll find, we provided cross sections of the proposed channel versus existing condition. We did for this channel section from below the work area to above the work area, we did detailed topographic survey of channel cross sections and up into the uplands on both sides. So we have a detailed survey worksheet that we worked off of to create these cross sections. So it was based on actual field data recently collected and not based on any old data that we had sitting around the airport. And I just wanted to get that point across. Next. And so just to give some confidence about what our relocated stream could be expected to look at, this actually was planted in 2017, this picture that you're looking at right here. And this is our relocated stream that we created from a distance. And you can see the shrub heights and everything that we've achieved in that time frame. You can go to the next one. And so there's our 4 foot of bottom. There are our live stakes and stickers to the left and right. We have a good flow pattern for that initial 4 feet. And we then go up at a 3-to-1 on either side. And they are really well vegetated with the dogwood and the willows. Go ahead. This shows one open section again, just a little bit further down. Go ahead. And again, that's one stake right there. It was a real thick willow that we put in and grew multiple stemmed. But those roots are just pegged down into those core logs that still exist. Those core logs are now, 6 years old, something like that. And they still exist and are still doing their thing. But but the shrubs are pretty much providing that stability that we need right now. Of importance is that bottom. You can see that bottom of that channel. We used compacted gravel right there, a good compacted gravel. We compacted it to, I think we had 98% compaction requirement for these particular gravel that we put down here. And between the erosion control fabric that we put there and now the fibrous roots, we're not finding any scour in that channel at all. And it's seen flows, upwards of 60, 70, 80 CFS and beyond, and still remains in good shape. Next. That is it. And that's just to provide what we expect this to look like when it's done. Again, we look at alternatives analysis. We do look at riprap and hard armoring and things like that. And that may very well be warranted in this case. We certainly have some issues downstream that would be helped by a hard armoring type section, especially at this corner. But we just get into so much difficulty addressing the regulations that we have to compromise on such things. And I think we've demonstrated that that compromise can work and has worked at the airport recently. So that is it in a nutshell. As I said before, I know we have a lot of yeoman's work to do here as far as third-party review and answering written questions, written responses to questions from abutters and things like that. I just don't know, how the commission would like to proceed.
Just hang in there for a minute. We're going to, do you want to go to the commission or the abutters?
Commission first.
The commissioners are going to address you first, then the abutters. So you just hang right there.
Sure.
Jack, I know.
Yeah, could you get down one drawing, 4 of 10? Yeah, right there. Complicated project. I think I followed most of it. I just want to check on something. Randy, you had mentioned the temporary bypass, a 30-inch bypass culvert that is going to intercept stormwater flow from the airport, divert it across and down into the previously constructed relocated stream, correct? Okay. While you're doing that, you're going to rebuild the troubled stream section, do it the right way, and that's going to take a matter of years, we think.
Year of construction, so a construction season to do, and then at least 3 growing seasons for it to stabilize, correct?
Okay, so once that's done, everything goes as planned, what happens to the flow that is going down the temporary 30-inch culvert that temporarily, what's the permanent solution for that?
So that location that Amy's pointing to right there, that is the relocated head wall that we're using for our temporary bypass. It has filter bags in front of it, and then it has the big sandbag dam. 2 things we can do there. We can remove that head wall and that pipe all the way to the manhole, plug it up, and you have the bypass going through. The other thing we do is remove the head wall, and I put one of those inflatable, heavy-duty inflatable balls in there that contractors regularly use, blow it up, and it's a permanent plug.
Yep.
Good thing about that is if anything ever happened here, we have a place that we could potentially open up again pretty easily and use again. We would tend towards that if we could. It would save us having to dig up all the way to that manhole. So that is what we're proposing right now, is the removal of the pad and plugging it in place.
Okay, so I guess that means that the project design is reliant on that rebuilt stream bed to take every bit of capacity that comes down there, including the 15 acres of runoff. No?
So we have 2, so the 15 acres gets diverted right away. So look at that. Yeah, let's do this one right here. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So the existing outfall, if Amy can point to that, is right there.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
That will be immediately ceased. And so we'll put a manhole in there.
Permanently?
Permanently.
Okay.
That will never be restored. So that is a permanent section of drainage manholes and pipe that will always be in place once this project is done, all the way down to our 2016 culvert. The temporary portion is that second drainage manhole right there. That's the temporary one that is allowing us, that's taking all the flow. That is allowing us some time to let this thing stabilize with vegetation. That's the one that would be plugged, but the rest of it, the rest
So
of the
that
bypass would
short,
always
just
be-
that short section?
Just that
is
short
temporary?
section, that's it.
Okay, got it. That makes sense to me now.
And the sandbag dam is substantial. It was as big as the one that we used in 2016. It's a removable fill. I'm going to use spec a better sandbag this time because 5 years later, a couple of them definitely fell apart on us, and it fell on poor the airport staff to take those out. So, but in any event, it's a removable fill, and all those sandbags will be taken out.
So would it be safe to say that your design requires the rebuilt stream bed to transfer less water than it does today?
For the duration of the stabilization period. Once the stabilization period is deemed good, minimum of 3, trying to do a
Yeah.
maximum of 5 years, we let that whole stream flow again, all the way from the red maple swamp and the neighborhoods. It all is released into our section again, and this thing functions again as it is today, but with a better profile, a stabilized profile.
But the CFS attributed to the 15 acres is removed
Is
forever.
removed permanently,
Is
so.
removed
That's removed,
Yeah.
so
That
we'll
was the main
ostensibly
emphasis
see
of
less.
my question.
So one thing this does not show is that we have a stream coming in above station, that's for station 5. There's a bunch of water always coming in right there. That discharge that we're removing is just a contributor to that. But we always have, most of the time, it's intermittent, but we have flow coming in at that direction. We have to remove that from the entire system just during our stabilization period. The 15.5 acres, we want to remove permanently and bypass it around our work site.
Okay, good. I'm all set.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Lynch.
You're not allowed to retire. You have to give it up. You have to stay at the airport. You have to solve these problems, because nobody knows what you know.
I was building a fieldstone wall today and enjoying it immensely.
You're missing your calling, but you've had your calling.
I have.
Fabulous. The whole concept makes complete sense. Taking the acreage and diverting it into, taking what is from hard surface and keeping it a hard pipe and discharging it to a hard system further downstream makes complete sense. It gets way early, and we have a long way to go with review, but I think that temporary bypass to divert it out while the stream bed establishes is a great thing to do for the purpose of establishing the stream bed. But I think right if that works, rather than plugging that pipe, there may be critically elevations, stall a weir in, that when the stream can't handle it, the excess flow finds its way down that pipe as well.
It's a really good idea, and it wouldn't be a hard thing to do, because when you get that, if you look at the 100-year theoretical storm event, we are looking at around 200 CFS, and don't quote me, but we're looking at about 200 CFS in this stream, which means that we're bank full and then some on both sides. For that to take a little bit of relief off of these sections certainly wouldn't hurt matters.
It would keep plenty of hydrology in the stream to have it thrive as a stream.
Oh yeah, the stormwater is doing nothing to support the wetland vegetation. It's that base flow that we want to make sure stays there. Those peak rates are just destroying things. So if we could actually design something with that nice head wall, we don't want to waste it. It's a nice concrete head wall and platform and sill. If we can design something on there where we lag some rebar in and build a critical elevation weir in there, that once water gets to a certain elevation, we start using that 30-inch pipe again. I'd welcome that. I think our engineers would welcome that as well. And I know the
Very
airport
early
would.
on to offer that as a
So-
suggestion, but I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah. And it's expensive infrastructure. If we can use it to some capacity that furthers all of our needs and the purpose of the project, I'm all for it.
And following reestablishing the bank height in the troubled area, station 250 to 400-ish, I envisioned that as partly in raising the bank on the downstream side, as well as lowering the stream bed somewhat.
Yes.
So theoretically, you went through the profiles pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that'll all be picked up in review. But if you look at those profiles, you must be flattening the stream bed over the overall course.
What dictates our elevation that we can actually dig this down to is the portion of the stream that we're actually marrying into. So there's a hard elevation that we can't go beneath, or we're just creating a swimming pool, right?
Correct.
With no function at all, permanently flooded, et cetera. And then the elevation that we're dealing with at the upstream limit of our work. And so when you look at those two elevation, it created about a 3.8% slope on our stream. I'd love it to be less than that, but that's what we're dealing with here. We actually decreased it a little bit as we got down to the section that we're dumping back into, but it's about a 3.8% slope. This stream has more elevation to it than anyone would realize. Just because it's so vegetated, it's hard to see, but yeah, it's got some slope to it, and there's a base elevation of this stream bed that's been dictated to us by those existing elevations out there.
So the areas that have silted in, typically silting in occurs when you slow velocities down and give an opportunity to do that.
Right at the
So
corner.
you flatten it, you have that real sweet spot between preventing scour versus not inviting sedimentation accumulation.
Is it any surprise that it occurred right at the corner at the bend in the stream? Pretty obvious, yeah.
So that's, hopefully with some review, we'll really put some emphasis into that as well. But if silt was getting in from I'm saying from other locations, what are the opportunities to prevent silt even from finding its way down to this point to begin with? Where's it coming from?
So we
It
have.
wasn't erosion from the brook, not from the construction.
We have those bank erosion scars upstream there. We also have a place where 3 channels meet just above this location. We're seeing some headward erosion there. But also, you're going to see water coming off the streets and things like that. It's dumping into this system. We do get some discharge from catch basins and things like that into that upgradient wetland. So I would think that it was the bank collapses that contributed most of it. But let's not forget all of the vegetation that's growing in this stream too. It is just dense. It is blocked. Wood debris just across the channel, creating dams. And so it's a combination of not just sediment, but the
Obstructions.
debris as well.
Natural
It's
obstructions.
working together. And as we all know, the sediment gets in there in fine layers, and the vegetation stabilizes it. It comes another layer, and it stabilizes it, and all of a sudden the natural stream bank is just a bunch of sediment, but it keeps growing year after year as more sediment gets in there. So this loss of bank height's been occurring for a long time. I don't think it was one mass event.
So, again, it was outside of your scope and your responsibility for this NOI, but those dead-end side streets off of Sutton, most of them are draining back towards Sutton,
Correct.
except near a crest at the end that maybe they taper off to the back a little bit. So there's not a lot of contributory area from these lower streets. You get further up, the streets seem to do slope back towards the airport, and they have for 60 years.
Forever, yeah?
Yeah.
I think it was Wright Ave or the one above Wright Ave. It might have been, was it Wood Ave?
Yep.
At the Wood Ave, we had a video during one of the 1-inch events of just a pipe that's buried in a bunch of leaves just flowing full into that wetland.
I remember that from the vegetation management plan
Oh,
at the
yeah.
end of Wood
We were
Ave.
out there, yeah.
When
That
you
was
did-
Mr., I forget his name.
Card,
but-
Mr.
Yeah, thank you.
Card.
Thank you,
Yeah, I have a brain like a trap, and it's
It goes
terrible.
back a long time. But also on these streets, if you look at where the houses are, all the downspouts, driveway runoff and things like that, it's so level in this area. A lot of that is just draining to backyards and things like that. A lot of it doesn't get into the drainage system. So I think it's a combination of roof area, driveways, just a conglomeration of, but it's an old established neighborhood. Like you said, it's not a new subdivision. It's been happening for years.
And that's why I raised the point, is because there's been some suggestions that contributing to the problem with the abutter downstream, which are very real, they have real problems down there. It's not anything that's changed drastically to these other subdivisions. What did flow off the back subdivisions, these other roadways, what flowed off the back before still does, and nothing's changed in a big way, so we're not looking at any greater volume. So, the emphasis on what you guys are doing, it's not going to be the panacea to solve everything at all storms, but it's going to solve most of it in a big way.
It's going to do, that bank height, when you look at the theoretical storm events and what we're containing now versus what the existing profile contains, is night and day. We're able to contain, we're designing, and we say we design for about the 25-year storm event, and then we test it for the 100-year theoretical storm event. And we actually, with the theoretical, even the older runoff numbers or even the new sets of data that we're now mandated to use, we can still get containment in the profile that we have. So, yes, yep, I agree with you.
Well, I'm very, very pleased with what I've seen so far, but we still have a bit to go through, but
Yeah.
you're on the right track. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well said.
Great presentation. I honestly don't have anything to add at this point. I had the same question about the bypass, but that was sufficiently answered. But I'm sure as the process goes on, as we get to peer review and I look at this a little closer, I'll probably have some questions down the road.
I expect lots of comment during the peer review. There's probably a million different designs you could put in here. This is just one, so.
All right, so we're gonna need a call. Is there a butters like to speak?
We're
Joe?
gonna get the abutters first, Mr. Pesno, if you don't mind. And, Joe, we'd like to call the abutters in first.
He is in a butter.
I am in a,
You're an abutter?
well,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
representing
27
him.
Charles Street.
Yeah, we did have a gentleman raise his hand. He
Yeah,
gavelled down.
I understand. If you'd be kind enough to let us get any abutters that want to come up to the podium, ask questions, all you need to do is, attaboy. When you get up there, give us your name and your address, okay?
Yep.
And ask your question.
John Dolan, 71 Riverview Street. First time coming to one of these meetings, a little bit over my head. So at the end of our road is one of the culverts. It is kind of overflowing, big storms and everything. That thing just maxes out, and they've cleared it a bunch of times. The water just goes up over the asphalt, back down again.
I'm sorry, is that Riverview right there?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's the culvert's a couple houses in, and then it curves and it cuts through my yard.
Yeah.
So the thing's been going crazy the last couple of years, and it's like eroding the side of the hill. Our garage is like about to go down into like an 18-foot ditch. The side of the road too, it used to have riprap. That's all gone. So that's starting to cave in. I don't know if this plan is going to have more water coming through or less. That's what I was trying to figure out. Still don't know.
Randy?
If I could, so Amy, you're gonna have to work with me here, we'll see if we can work together. So our project area is on the other side of our riprap fill platform. So Amy, if you point over there. So our project's over there, and that is where the overtopping is occurring, and that's getting, that overtopping water and any water from the neighborhood is getting down to Charles Street and getting into a drainage system that eventually does get across to, through the railroad tracks. To tell you the truth, I haven't been over to Riverview, but
Yep.
I've seen the stream, it's right there, and it does go under the railroad tracks.
Yep.
The section that we are dumping our water into, so the bypass, actually discharges further to the north and west, to the west, basically. So if you go around our fill platform, Amy, and go down to where the treatment plant road is, if we have that. So you can see the channel right there, the dark line. That actually discharges, goes across the railroad tracks there, and gets by the subdivision. So in my estimation, we are containing flow that some does get down into the stream that gets across your roadway. And we are putting it back into this channel, which discharges in an area that doesn't get down to Riverview Street. So in essence, my opinion, this is, the project will not exacerbate any situations on Riverview and should help it by keeping that flow in the new stream.
All right. It's good to hear. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Wants to tell me some more?
Hi, my name is Dong Shin. I represent Matthews Way Homeowners Association. And I did send over a document via email. And so there are a few things that we want to address. Sandtech did all the research for the rainfall data, is that correct?
He took the rainfall data from the HydroCAD, model. So the model.
The model,
It's
okay,
from the
so
model.
so it's from the model. And you guys use modeling data from TP40, is that correct?
I would have to,
The data from 1961?
I would have to
So
check.
there's more current atmospheric data, and other towns, like the town of Raleigh, have chosen to enforce that, where they use NOAA data, Atlas 14, instead of data from 1961, which is really old. It's no longer comparable. We shouldn't be using weather data from such a long time ago, because obviously things have changed. I'm not saying they changed drastically, but things have changed. This commission can enforce the town to have upcoming projects use current data.
We
and
do.
not-
We do already. So Randy's not speaking out of turn. Randy's an environmental scientist and works very closely with the engineers. That's why I think he leaned over his shoulder to ask the colleague.
Okay.
But you're in fact using the latest data, and our bylaw requires that. as do the stormwater standards.
So we actually used the 6.5 for the 100-year storm event the other day when we did receive some comments. We ran a quick run-through for the 8.6, I think it was, and we still had containment. However, future data sets submitted to the commission, especially during the peer review period, will be based on those data that are required by the bylaw. But the higher storm event, we still had capacity in the design right now, but we do need to upgrade that data.
Okay, so based on that, you're saying that it's going to contain a 100-year event storm, but that's based on 1961 data, correct?
So the data that's in the notice of intent right now shows containment, provides data for containment of that 6.5, I believe it was, 100-year storm event, so the older data. We have to provide additional upgraded data to the commission. However, we did do a cursory run internally to show that we did have containment for that higher end theoretical storm event.
Okay, so the data I have now from Atlas 14 shows 7.91, which is higher than 6.5 for a 100-year event. And as far as the most recent storm, on August 9th, NOAA said in the airport area alone, we had rainfall from 5 to 6 inches within a 24-hour period. 5 to 6 inches. By your data set, that would be a 25 to 50-year storm that's just happened in a random day.
It actually occurred in less than 24 hours, so the intensity of that storm actually exceeded a 100-year storm event because it occurred in less than 24 hours.
So is your modeling data going to be updated in such a way that this solution that you proposed is going to handle this type of weather?
No. No.
And nothing in the world does. That's why FEMA exists.
Okay,
When you
so,
have something that's astronomical, that falls off the statistical curve, nobody designs for it.
okay.
Otherwise, we'd have Merrimack River running down every single street to
So-
collect the stormwater that might come.
So as a butter is down the way, Matthews Way, you see those two little homes at the end of Matthews Way. I've attached pictures in the email, but water comes from the airport property, and I believe that was an August 9th picture? August 8th picture. We literally had maybe 20 to 30 foot wide stream jumping over the bank. It was just, it was a literal waterfall.
I saw the pictures. And I understand you were saying it's airport water, but there was a lot of water coming from Sutton Street and the other side streets that were contributing to the acclimation of that water. I mean, you can't expect anybody to be able to calculate an 8-inch storm.
When Matthews Way was built, that whole end and how they handle the stormwater in that area was a big debate.
Yeah.
And we went through third-party review multiple times, and I seem to remember, we didn't even agree the first 2 times around.
Yeah.
Because what was being proposed by your development, we questioned whether it was gonna work or not, so.
We weren't part of that process.
Of course
We're
not,
just
of
the
course
home
not,
buyers.
but nonetheless, when Matthew, again, it was a grandfathered paper street layout.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much of a choice to say anything on it, other than the fact that it's about a wetland, and we tried to chime in and get those folks to design the stormwater management on that site, but it's basically your stormwater management on your street goes to the back, and when it's overwhelmed, it gets compromised. And if it were not for the curve in the stream that we're talking about solving and keeping it from overtopping during the statistical event, you're gonna continue to enjoy what you probably used to enjoy for marginal drainage on very, very heavy storms.
Okay.
But nothing from the airport, if the analysis and the review of that analysis holds true, and it follows what Randy just described, all of the area that overtops in that general corner will be contained and won't happen. That's what we're hearing. And we're optimistic, because I think this is the first time in a year, if not 18 months, that we've really got a pretty rock-solid solution that's being presented to us.
Okay. And I'd also like to say that I do like your input in that keeping the bypass open should there be excessive rainfall that the stream cannot manage. Because you're saying the stream will manage, a certain level of event, but leaving the bypass open in the event that the event is too large makes more sense to us instead of closing it and coming back out after the fact when it's too late.
I agree.
Okay. Other than that, I guess a lot of my questions were answered with the diagram. As long as you guys do update your data set to the current data set. And now that I know that Town of North Andover has adopted the new data set, I don't think I have much more on this, you guys.
You can get up and re-ask if something comes to you.
Okay, great.
Let us go to the next guy. Mr.
Great.
Pez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pesnola.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing the owners of 27 Charles Street, 27 Charles LLC. We have thoroughly reviewed the notice of intent and the accompanying calculations and so forth, and feel that this is a great step in the right direction with regards to solving the airport stream overtopping. We did submit a letter with 10 points, and I understand that the applicant has that, and if one of the comments that they've already addressed is the rainfall intensities and using the new data. So I won't belabor the commission with all of the finer points. I think I want to focus in on one big issue, which is the neighborhood ditch, the ditch at the end of Grosvenor Road. And what we've been calling for a year and a half now, the secondary breach upstream that the airport did address with the installation of some core logs up there. I haven't heard anything with regards to any permanent solution on that, because that secondary breach does send water down to the end of Poor Street, which enters into this neighborhood ditch, which ends at the end of Grosvenor, goes on to the airport out parcel where the tower is, and ends up in Matthews Lane drainage system, and ultimately 27 Charles Street, and the rear of that. We had asked originally on the very first site walk before the first enforcement order was issued if the airport would entertain taking that water from that ditch, seeing that some of it is originating on airport property, just coming into town rights of ways and then back into neighbors' land, but then it ultimately gets back onto the airport property. If they would entertain trying to come up with a solution there, trying to come up with a diversion of that water into the stream. I think there's even a better opportunity now that that the plan is diverting that 15 acres of runway drainage through the 30-inch pipe, that there's potential capacity there to get some of this other water away from Matthews Lane, away from 27 Charles, and the impacts that are happening there. Understanding that the core logs were put in pretty quick. The core logs were put in pretty quick, and they worked. We were out there probably just as much as Stantec was doing inspections during rainfalls, and we concurred that by and large the core logs were working to keep the airport stream. But 27 Charles was still experiencing water coming down there, and that was from the neighborhood ditch. On larger storms and towards the end, and definitely in the August 8th storm, we had intrusion under and over, and that's why we asked for the silt fence to be installed. But they're still getting water. There's still something happening here that wasn't happening when 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and so two points that I'd really like addressed and with regards to the continuation of the review of this is that upper breach and a permanent solution there, and is there an opportunity to work with Mr. Borghese and the town to maybe solve the problem of this neighborhood ditch and these flows at the same time that this work is happening. The only other point that I would make is with regards to timing. During the presentation, it wasn't let out that their plan is to wait till next summer on this. And the owners of 27 Charles needs this fixed now. They needed it fixed a year ago. And is there any opportunity for some of this work to be released early under the enforcement order, or to expedite third-party peer review and this process, and at least get the 30-inch diversion pipe in this season, and start to protect these down gradient properties as soon as humanly possible? Thank you.
Joe, before you step away, you probably know this, the upstream area, the failure that you're talking about that you would like them to address near the end of Poor Street that you referred to, is that on airport property, or it's on town property or private property?
It's on airport property.
On airport property.
But it leaves airport property, goes to the end of Poor Street.
Yeah.
Then it goes through 2 yards, the end of the last house on the left on Poor Street, and the last house on the right on Grosvenor. Okay. And that's where this man-made ditch is that collects that water.
Okay.
But when it gets to the end of Grosvenor, it dumps onto the airport out parcel, and sheet flows across it. Some of it gets into the Matthews Lane drainage system. Some of it goes directly to 27.
And I believe you, and you know, understood. I guess my confusion is that when Randy described the project, it seemed like there was like upstream of the trouble spot at the bend. It seemed like bank was pretty adequate on both sides of that trouble spot. So it sounds like he's thinking that the bank is adequate, and you're telling me that it's not. So
This is the stream channel that comes down from the Red Maple Swamp, and that comes down, and it's not as well defined a stream, and it's a secondary stream. That comes down towards the south, and then takes a sharp right-hand turn and terminates at the head wall that's going to be removed. Where it takes that sharp right is where the breach happens, and some of the flows in higher rain events goes to the left, and that travels down to Poor Street. In that area, that stream channel is almost non-existent. And they put some core logs up there to divert that, or to prevent that diversion from happening. But I didn't hear anything with regards to a permanent solution. One more point with regards that I forgot. On the segment of the 150 feet that's not being rehabilitated, this is something maybe for third-party review, but the existing conditions HydroCAD model appears to have been just repeated from the 2015 analysis. There was, as Randy said, there was comprehensive additional topography taken through the stream. Part of our review of the original 2015 was a criticism that not enough topography was done to properly model the stream bed in those upper reaches. Now they've done that, but they didn't update that existing conditions model. It's important to understand the functioning of the existing conditions to prove out what we've seen happen. And I think that would also have us a little bit more confident in that 150-foot section that it doesn't need to also be included here. And I don't want to lose the opportunity to do that work if that work makes sense to do at this time.
And you know, the discussion is good. I think, you know, the airport's making a concerted attempt to solve this problem, and, you know, maybe this will be a good chance to revisit some of the assumptions going into this.
Oh, absolutely. this is a huge step. We wish it was done, you know, earlier, faster, all of those things, but we certainly commend them for the design and the thoughtfulness in it. I think the diversion into the 30-inch, the permanent diversion is huge here, because it just takes that piece out of worrying that's adding to the problem.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
That speaks right to the opening question I had asked of Randy is, you know, so where does the responsibility of jurisdiction begin and end? You know, what is truly attributed to the airport property and contributing to the bigger problem, and what isn't? And we do know that there are some things from off airport that shouldn't be addressed necessarily, but if they could be as part of the overall analysis, then we ought to maybe consider looking at it.
The complications of it are evidenced by Joe's description of what that drainage does when it leaves Poor Street onto the property, off to the property, onto the property, off to the property. So you can imagine the drainage knows no property boundaries. The only thing I'll ask, Amy, if you can blow up the area between Grosvenor and going all the way up to Wood, I just want to clarify
That's what I was
one
trying to do.
thing. So just that red maple swamp. Yeah, so Wood is way up there. There's Wood and there's Grosvenor down at the bottom. That red maple swamp that you see at the end of all these roadways, there is a ditch along the taxiway of the airport that separates any airport development at all from any contributions to that particular area. So that red maple swamp, very level. Most of the water that we have seen, Wood Avenue is a major contributor to that. That wetland is lower than the ends of these roadways, so water flows downhill. And so we have an accumulation of water that eventually overflows a little pond that's in there. People use it for skating in the wintertime, things like that. But eventually overflows and gets down to this area that Joe was talking about. Under the enforcement order, we did put out some outrigger core logs to try to divert more of it in there. And those core logs are going to remain in place for that diversion, but that entire area is bordering vegetated wetland. The thought of going in there and ditching and things like that gets us into a whole new realm of permitting and things of that nature that we're hoping to avoid, but certainly understand that especially the Wood Avenue drainage, if that somehow got into just with simple core logs and not getting into hard construction, can we do something fairly simple that does complete that diversion? I think we've done a pretty good job to date of getting more water into our stream by putting some diversions out there in that red maple swamp. Extending them a little bit further would do even more. It's whether or not you see a core log as a permanent diversion or not. A ditch certainly would be. A core log will build up debris and things like that and will eventually become a hump in the landscape, but it's certainly not an engineered structure by any means. So that's the area that Joe was talking about. I understand it, but I did want to get across that a lot of that water that's emanating from there is, yes, it's airport property, but it is coming in from off-property sources.
What would be wrong with, why can't we permit a ditch? Why are we telling them no? We're asking them to solve a problem that covers more than 15 acres. What would be wrong with
Ditching in a wetland, yeah.
I understand, but this is not a usual filing.
No?
This involves a tremendous big section of the town.
There is.
There should be an exception, I think.
But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, I think I used the term 60 years old. I bet those houses on Wood in Grosvenor are close to 100 years old.
So what?
My point is that swamp that's there has always been there. It's always been fed by these. It's nothing that's happened in the past 10 years or the recent storms that have resulted in the impacts downstream. It's always been there.
But we have a chance to solve a neighborhood problem, or at least help it.
Yeah, I think that's
I mean, because let me...
contrary to what we're here for.
Well, let me just
say alter a wetland.
Well, if you look at the project, we've already allowed an alteration on the property one time in the past. When I look at this, and when I listen now, I actually am questioning why we need a third-party review. I don't know if we need a third-party review. I think we have, between the abutter experts and this engineer, I think there's and the engineers on this commission, the engineer on this commission, I I don't know, what are we wasting time for?
Well, my thing is getting back to Grosvenor and Wood and those water issues. There is a drainage pipe on Grosvenor. It's plugged. The town knows it's there. I think the swale would be more important on the dead-end streets, town property, versus you trying to divert over. Because if the airport ever surveyed the land along those dead-end streets, those people would be very surprised on the size of their yards. So,
The encroachments?
oh my God, yeah.
Well, I'm not
no,
suggesting we create an issue for
I
you.
don't think the airport is responsible for that water. I think
I don't either.
I think they've done an outstanding job explaining to what they've done.
But I'm not saying this to turn a blind eye to an opportunity to do some, low impact
I mean, that's what I'm suggesting.
solutions to be, without digging ditches, but I mean, some low impact solutions, as Randy suggested, to perhaps slow it down, direct it, gradually and carefully, let it naturally grow in and rot and create an earth form that the water wants to flow in a different direction.
But you-
Those all make sense.
But just consider this, if you will, and then I'll shut up. We already allowed them to divert a stream that is now gonna be used as part of the solution for this project. We're already in for a penny.
So what's our, how do we actually compel, what's our teeth or our carrot here to compel them to actually do that, right?
We don't have to compel. I heard testimony from Randy say that would be better than core logs. Sounds to me like it's something they'd be willing to do.
Certainly, I just want to make sure, we're separating out, they're related issues, there's the project that's being proposed, and then this would be basically a separate project.
I think it'll be part of their project.
I just don't see how we could, force them to create ditches and wetlands.
I'm not saying we force them. It sounded to me like it was, they were willing to do it. If I heard it wrong,
No,
Straighten me out.
if the airport wants to do that.
that's what I'm saying.
certainly.
If they want to do it,
I'm not saying I would necessarily go along with it myself, but
well,
I just want to make sure that you guys aren't feeling as if we're saying you guys have to do this to benefit other properties.
I was pretty clear.
That's-
I'm not saying compel anybody to do anything. I heard what I heard from the applicant.
Dom has just told me, going out there so often, that just the simple matter of us putting the core logs there, intercepting the flow, it already has started to find its way to where we want it to go. It's already having a scouring effect in there. So the core logs
Scouring effect or?
scouring effect. You're starting to see a channel there created
making this
because
But in
we
a
put the
good way,
core logs
in
in
a
there.
good way.
Well, in a good way for what we're trying to address here.
So I guess that's my point. That's what I'm relying on right there. And I'm saying that could be done, that could help to further solve a neighborhood problem. You're not twisting anybody's arm. You're just helping the project improve.
Yeah, but what Randy's saying, it's improving itself already.
Well, a scouring effect over no ditch is not, I don't consider that any improvement.
Oh, the thing of
That's a
it is,
byproduct.
Once you dig the trench, who maintains it after that?
You just let it go, but that's
I mean, you just saw the trench is his stream channels that are only 6 years
So
old.
instead of sheeting across with slow velocities and just finding its way into a problem area, you're diverting it and converting it to a narrow area where there's enough velocity to carve this new stream bed.
That's correct.
And get it in the right direction.
That's correct.
And it's that sort of action, I call that low impact type of, mitigation, without digging ditches. I mean, I hate to say it, I remember the huge debates with vegetation management. I mean, this red maple swamp is what we were all in an uproar about preserving, Hell with the FAA requirements with vertical height clearance, we wanted to maintain the swamp, and, I think the viability of its function is important to us. It still is, but if you can control those flows as we're talking about in a low impact way, I think it's something worth looking at. I mean, this is the very first night we're hearing this. We've come a long way.
Yeah, we've learned a lot, too.
On the third-party review, I actually was sitting here thinking exactly that. I think we do need a third-party review. But I think that
Would-
the, Joe's comments go to the third-party review, just as the engineer submittal, that they consider those, but I don't want to be, just having a butter be our third, because it's not a third party, he's an abutter. So, but I think that,
Let me, again, I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting, but what do we need reviewed that we can't review?
there's a shitload of, there's a lot of hydrology here that is very, very critical to make this thing work.
okay,
And
but-
you cannot let that just simply happen off the cuff.
Okay,
This is a
well,
lot
I mean, you're
the whole crux of the thing working is on the analysis.
We're talking about delaying any improvements.
Yep, and doing it right.
We're talking about delaying it for months.
Talk about doing it right and giving them permission to do it right. I think I heard the criticisms, Joe, in your letter was correct. You know, not gonna let it go until next year. I mean, there are ways if this thing's, I imagine it's gonna get to the point of getting a certificate, a order of conditions. I think that we would allow sequenced work that something like get the bypass pipe in and divert the 15 acres immediately. You're talking about doing the ditch work, I think, next summer or a year out,
We're talking about doing the project that we just
the
presented.
entire project. You wouldn't do
Going
it
through the funding
piecemeal.
process and things like that and doing it next
So
construction
funding,
season.
so funding. Yeah.
This is not a cheap project.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's what you deal with government, we know, you know. You come to a private developer, they go to the bank and they talk to stockholders and they find a way to get the funding, but in public realm, you know, you gotta go big into the legislature, in your case, actually not anymore, right? You go to, is it under the airport commission, or is this under Mass Aeronautics?
Mass Aeronautics.
So it is going to
Absolutely,
legislators
sure.
to get that, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
We fully understand the complexity of the different properties involved, and we're not suggesting that this be fully borne by the airport. We're suggesting that there's a cooperative effort between the town public works and recognizing the fact that there's a blocked pipe out on Grosvenor. And maybe that's part of the problem. What I would suggest is that Mr. Borghese be involved here, and that maybe there's at the end of Grosvenor, there's an inlet, there's a catch basin that receives that neighborhood ditch. So we don't worry about where it's coming from and what's happening. But then maybe that can be piped through this new berm and into the rehabilitated stream channel.
There is a pipe there.
Just to look at helping with that situation, because we did have the core logs in place that were working. We did have the additional diversion upstream at this secondary breach, but we still had water coming on to 27 Charles.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still an issue there, and it's just being able to utilize the opportunity where this work is going to happen, and this design is now in place and on the street, and do the grades work? Could it happen? Can the flows, can the additional flows be accepted? And maybe it's only a portion of the flows that can be accepted in there, but every little piece is going to happen, is going to help with my client's property and Matthews Lane.
I have spoken with DPW director, so he is aware of what's going on. But, you know, same thing, he's waiting to see what everybody else's cards are falling.
Well, when we had that meeting, that initial meeting on site, and we suggested that maybe something here could happen, Mr. Borghese was there. So I think it's just the connection point is this commission, who has an active application before it, charging to the degree you can. Mr. Borghese, and understanding that element was not incorporated, and can he take the lead in coming up with maybe a proposal that is a catch basin and a pipe, simplifying it.
Randy, is you, I'm sorry, Joe.
And then presenting
Has
that to
yours,
them.
you and your team, again, it's not your team anymore, have they had contact with Borghese and the town officials with regards to coordinating your efforts versus ours? Yeah, so I think that line of dialogue, you know, through Amy should probably start, Maybe it's something you guys have already considered within your design, but I think you want to, I think we all want to understand how maybe some minor tweakings everybody can benefit from.
Do we know what the water flow is
We
off
know,
property that's in question?
like, how much is coming off of Wood Ave, how much is
Well,
not to that degree.
Because Mrs. Pignall said it was coming from airport land. Started out as airport land, then goes public land, and goes back.
That's a tough, that's a tough.
It's tough to figure out where it
See
is,
that.
but the channel is, the channel's fairly small. I think it could be estimated what that channel holds, and it's not, it's doing its job. It's just when it gets to the end of Grosvenor, there's no more channel. It just sheet flows onto the airport out parcel.
So if you're saying from Grosvenor, it's controlled until it gets to Grosvenor, there's a drainage pipe there.
Got it.
I think even you commented there was a barrel
There's a barrel stuck.
blocking.
We calculated the contribution zone to that channel right there, that eventually gets down around there, is 75% from Poor Street, 25% from Airport, was the rough breakdown of that water.
Okay.
And that channel, and then the second one that goes around the pool and eventually down onto the Oblite parcel. Complicated. Yeah. You can see all the property boundaries involved. It's, but you know what? We're not gonna solve that particular issue. It's in our heads right now, so we're gonna have a conversation about, and then we will talk about approaching DPW as well. It's not a bad idea. We don't want what our project we're doing, trying to handle ours, to be perceived as a panacea by everybody involved here. We certainly wanna do our part, but at some point, we're not gonna do everybody's part. But it is worth the look, as Al has said.
You guys are doing your due diligence. There's no question there.
To not have the conversation is irresponsible, so.
Right,
I-
all right. So we need a third-party review. So,
Yeah, I need a scope from you guys for the third-party peer review.
okay.
I need a scope from you guys.
Yeah. And again, honing in on this kind of discussion, the scope should be limited to what the NOI includes at this point.
Yes.
So what we just went into is broadens that scope somewhat.
Especially the updated
I don't want to
calculations.
waste any more time, stretching out to another meeting, to have that meeting with Borghese and staff to result in a better understanding of scope, but I think our third-party review should look at the NOI application and any solution that the town engineering department comes up with, that it get reviewed under the context of the same review.
That's a separate egg, though. Why should the airport have it?
And if Borghese doesn't, or the staff, excuse me, that's not John's issue, it's not his problem, it's just his staff. If they're unable, for the same reasons, have budget constraints or time constraints, and they just can't do it as part of this, then the NOI gets reviewed on the face of its own submission. And it doesn't not obligate the town from doing something in the future, it's just a separate project, which I think it is a separate project. As much as there may be opportunity to resolve them together and collectively and cooperatively, we're talking about potentially 3 government agencies that don't necessarily have the time or the ability or the finances to get it done quickly.
Well, I
So I
think,
think we deal with what's before us.
I agree. I think we should just go on the merits of the NOI permit application and in the airport's land. They're doing their diligence, making sure their water is not going into the abutters. So I don't think that land, that part, which is,
So do we want to set up a retainer or, set up a third-party review?
Yeah, and I want to be, I started to go down the road and it's, I mean, Joe's input is great, really good. He's put a lot of effort into it. It's something that he would do if he was submitting, or something he would do if he was reviewing. But the same token, he represents a client who very well might appeal what it is what we do. So you can't be the independent third-party reviewer. But I think that the documents that he have, we make them available to our third reviewer, because it helps point them in a particular direction that resolves a comprehensive review and resolves some of the questions that have been raised. So I think the scope is the NOI and any abutter comments that have come in, as well as commission comments. That's what the scope is.
Okay, so,
And then we do have to obviously put it up for escrow for to get that review
Right,
started.
Right. So the NOI for its compliance with all applicable regulations, is that broad enough, or?
Well, that's going to be just a stormwater review. I mean.
Well, that's what I
and Again,
mean,
from
like-
a wetlands perspective, I want to make sure it's, every bit as comprehensive when it comes to the.
Right.
The
Right.
stormwater management regulations with regards to, velocities and runoffs and slopes and, the real hydrology and the hydraulics both that weigh into this. It's got to be that kind of review. Sometimes we get just, environmental assessments. and-
Right, right.
And, impacts to buffer zones and whatnot.
Right.
We're looking for more than that.
The whole kit
Yeah,
caboodle?
we're looking for the ability to, are the catchment areas properly defined? Are the times of concentration, are the right rainfall events used? I mean, all those things. I think Joe's first pass at it is pretty darn good of what it is we're looking
So, Joe,
for.
the qualifications of the reviewer should be what?
It's gonna be a professional engineer.
RPE?
Oh, yeah, it's gonna
With
be.
any specific discipline? Should
Civil.
civil or hydraulic?
It's civil. This is all, I mean, it all falls in the same realm.
The stormwater's not a factor?
What?
The stormwater is not a factor?
That is the hydrology, and
That-
that is what civils do.
Okay. Hey, I'm just trying to make sure that,
And in terms of, wetland impacts, would I be trying to find a firm that has,
I mean, I'm reluctant to say it in public, but since I swore in public, which I apologize for profusely, the reality is, we are altering an altered stream in the interest of confining it and make it do what its original intent was. What could we possibly assess for the
wetlands?
wetland impacts?
Okay.
It's already been done. If you're sticking within the confines of what we just talked about, I don't think that's the emphasis of the review at all.
Okay.
My opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, we have others on the commission from the environmental perspective who
Yeah, I mean, I
might
think-
see it differently.
I think we can handle the environmental side.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. It's all about the water.
I would like the chance to submit the updated stormwater calcs with the revised.
Before we start the review.
Before we start the
Okay.
review.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay.
And
So we
if you've gotten, and Hancock's review letter, I'm sure you said you did, if there are things that you don't debate, if there are things that you don't contest that are in there, if you think they're germane, it doesn't change what you presented to us, and you want to make those as part of your revise, might as well send that out ahead of time. No longer an issue, no longer an issue, no longer an issue.
We think we want to do a written response to that letter.
Okay.
That's been forwarded us by the commission, so it's official
Sure.
That'd be
comments now, so we'll provide a written response
Okay.
on that. Yep. Great.
So what are we gonna need for escrow?
great. Oh, I don't know, I gotta get quotes.
Okay, so what do we have, can it continue, or what are we doing?
We have to continue.
For how
do we,
long?
do we get quotes or do you do an RFP?
I get quotes. I go out for 3, with the understanding that it's below a certain cost, so then I don't have to do a formal RFP.
What's the limit, what's the level for an RFP?
I want to say 10,000, I
You don't
think.
think this is gonna hit that number?
Close to that number. I thought the threshold was higher for
I
her.
think
It
we're
might-
gonna go, I think we're gonna go north of that number.
Okay,
When you look at the scope that I just heard laid out,
yep,
It gets more complicated because
True.
we're not dealing with a private party, we're dealing with the airport who's gonna post the escrow.
Right.
So it depends on the sources of their funding. If they're gonna use opera money, full-blown qualifications based RFQ. If you're using opera money, there's rules and laws you have to
Right,
follow.
right,
So
right,
again, if we were dealing with a private person who simply would go to the bank and,
Okay.
get it funded the way they need to. But these, the commission may have, the airport commission may have their hands tied of how it is we would procure those services.
okay.
Is it coming out of your operating budget?
We did third-party review for the 523 project, I remember that. We actually
Yeah.
met with the people
Yeah.
in Worcester.
Ecotech
I
and
remember we did that,
Graves
so
Engineering.
I don't remember the process, but I know we went through it fairly recently with you. I don't remember, but I don't know.
Yeah, if they're just regular state requirements, we're probably gonna meet those with our own local requirements. But if it's opera money, which is still being used,
If we discuss that and get back to Amy
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
what we, how we think
Okay.
it's gonna be funded.
It'll dictate the process we have to use.
All right, good. Nothing's easy.
All right, so what's the, we have to continue with the meeting, or what are we doing?
Yep. Yeah.
So you're saying it has to go off, you think it has
Hold
to?
on, we need, there needs to be a motion to authorize
Yep.
Amy to seek third-party review by whatever means is necessary, whether it's the RFP or, we have to, a motion to authorize that.
Yeah, I move that we do exactly that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay.
Is the enforcement order still in place?
Yes.
So this was a hybrid again, because we want them to continue to maintain and do the things that they have been doing.
So the question is, do we need to modify the enforcement order in the interim to allow them to comply with it or make,
No, I think
take action?
The enforcement order spelled out everything you needed to do, as well as file this NOI.
The only action that we had to do was the silt fence. The continuing measure is the monitoring of
Monitoring after
certain
1
storm
inch.
events.
And
That's
to
it.
adjust any of those measures based on the monitoring. So I don't,
Maintain 'em.
that doesn't change.
Right.
And I'd say that doesn't change until that if we're talking about when this project might start, that requirement might be in place until you start that project and through the project.
Yes.
My question was more if they had to do something physically on the property,
Oh,
It-
by keeping it open, it
keeping
leaves
it
that
open and
doorway.
so forth. If they had to actually do something, do they need more authority, or is the current EO sufficient?
I
mean-
think it's sufficient
I think it
I
is.
think it's
in
sufficient.
terms of those.
Yeah.
Based on your monitoring reports, if you came in and said, we got a big problem, we wouldn't say we don't do anything. We tell you to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's happened twice, basically.
Yeah, so
Right, right.
the existing order does that for us and for them.
So our next meeting is the 25th. I am going to be out of the office for the rest of this week and Monday, so I won't really be getting back to be able to tackle this until Tuesday of next week. So in all reality, I'm not going to get very far for the 25th. And then after that, our next meeting is November 15th. So I would say continue to the 15th.
I would say the 15th, there's no way we're gonna get a third-party review.
Just, I will not be at the 15th meeting.
I know why.
It's that time of year.
It is, it is that time of year.
So,
It's fine.
okay. 15th. All right.
So we'll do the 15th, and if there's a problem, which there probably will be, we might have to continue.
Amy, encourage you to talk to Mr. Borghese and
Yeah.
have you get some assistance and
Yeah.
get in that RFQ. What are the things we're looking for in the scope?
Yep. I had asked him if he had, because I shared the NOI with him, and I asked him if he had any comments. He didn't get back to me, but that was today, so he may not have. I shared with him when we got it, but I asked him today about comments, so.
I think he's waiting to see what was happening before he put any cards on the table.
Yeah. Okay,
So we came up with a date, but I don't think we moved it.
right,
So we moved that we continue to November 15th.
okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe.
Give me 1 sec.
That was going to be extensive. Enforcement orders. We did Turnpike Street. Next one is 242-1708, 271 Stevens Street. We lost Amy.
She's not in the bathroom, she'll-
No, I know, I'm only kidding. doing Stevens Street? Amy,
Yep,
271
so,
Stevens.
just a quick update, we will be getting the NOI tomorrow. They're working with Moore and Cameron with the plan, and they are working hard to tackle the NOI, so. But we didn't give them a deadline for that, I'm just letting you know.
In the future, I think we should, on enforcement orders, give some type of deadline,
Yeah,
so stuff doesn't just go float into oblivion. They can always come and ask for more time, or at least so we
Yeah.
know stuff is coming up, like.
yeah,
There's
Yeah.
several that we have that
yeah.
are just kind of sitting out there.
All right.
But that's
All
fine.
righty.
All right, so we have no action taken, so we don't have to
Yep,
vote or anything?
yep.
Okay. Next one is 35 Peterson Road.
All righty. Commission will recall, this is a violation involving removal of native vegetation, importation of wood chips, and creating garden beds, and planting non-native vegetation within the BVW and the associated 15-foot no disturbance zone. This particular subdivision had a reduced no disturbance zone. Ms. Sun had received the NOI, responded immediately to all of our directives, and last November, she took all of the chips out, reestablished the stone wall at the 15, and then last fall, October, November, she did do some woody shrub plantings and a very heavy application of the wet mix. And the enforcement order just said we'll revisit in September of this year to find out how things are going, whether or not we need any additional woody shrubs. So I went out there on the 28th of September, and I found an explosion of herbaceous. So the seed.
In a good way.
In a very good way. The shrubs are out there, but really it's all about the herbaceous, and the seed mix took like crazy. I don't recommend any other plantings. There's nothing else that needs to be done out there. And I would happily recommend that you vacate the enforcement order, having seen that it's been met and successfully very much, so.
Any questions, Jack?
None.
Yeah?
All set.
Joe?
Thank you.
Good.
You understood, you worked very hard,
Yeah.
and it looks beautiful. Great
Thank
job,
you. Thank
great
you.
job.
Just
Yeah,
be
they
careful,
grow.
just be careful going down there. We don't want you to break your leg again.
It's it's height of a human being, you know, those things go, yeah, we cannot walk in there. Yeah.
I know.
Well, thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peng.
Thank you.
Take care.
Do we need to move to
Yeah.
vacate that board?
Yep. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242, 634, 85 Colonial.
So the commission will recall that this lot came before you under a request for a certificate of compliance. There was non-compliant structures at the rear that the commission was unable to issue the certificate. The sellers decided to try to go for a modification to allow for those after the fact. Commission gave them indication that that would not be approved. So they went back and did more negotiations with their buyer and basically withdrew that modification. And after that, you know, we wanted to make sure that the new owners were on notice that there was still outstanding non-compliant structures, and that, you know, we wanted to at least you know, have a conversation with them to make sure they understood and then go from there. So I think the new homeowner is here.
Yeah, hi, Evan Jones, happy to be a North Andover resident now, so nice to meet you guys. Just moved in January, the Castaldos were the previous owners, great people. When we were closing on the house, we heard there were some order conditions our lawyers told us as we were drawing up the paperwork, so we asked that they solve that problem as we were moving in, obviously, without anything open. I think they came to you guys a few times, and I thought that originally, at least this paper says differently, there was something with the original as-built plan that needed to be closed out with you guys. So honestly, I thought they were gonna be able to solve it. Seems like they haven't been able to, so I'm kinda looking for advice on what I need to do to be in compliance. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? When you closed on the house, did you have a closing attorney?
Yes.
Did your closing attorney tell you that there was an open order of conditions with a violation?
Yes, that's why we asked
So-
them to solve it. It was, sorry, yes, the answer
Okay,
is
so
yes.
you were aware?
I
that
was
the house
aware
The house was not in compliance when you bought it?
with the original I gotta be honest, I knew that was a problem, but I thought that it was gonna be solvable, so, yeah.
Okay, I don't have any more questions right now.
I have no more questions until the case of my perjury, court case that he has against his attorney and the parties. Nothing to do with this commission. You bought a house that's non-compliant. There are parts of that house that have to be torn down, parts of the deck, which was made very, very clear to the applicant, the then owner, who assured us that they would convey that information to the buyer. That's between you and the seller.
That we were told that it was being disclosed
We
to the new buyer.
clearly told them
Yeah.
they got a big problem. So it's between you and them. This is not solvable. You bought a house that's non-compliant,
So,
and you're not gonna get a certificate of compliance. And I don't know if you got a mortgage, but boy, oh boy.
well, so what can I do?
Call your attorney.
Yeah.
Call a different attorney who might sue the attorney that represented you, but it's got nothing to do with this commission at this point.
That's why I asked you if you had a lawyer. I honestly can't believe any licensed attorney would have closed on this property with that knowledge. I just don't believe it. You had to have signed some kind of a release to the seller. You had to have given him a release to buy the house out of compliance.
Would you buy a car without a title? A car that couldn't get a title?
So, I apologize that
Because you
I'm
can't
clearly-
register a car without a title, so you didn't get a title. That's exactly what you got when you bought this house. You bought a house without a title.
But I got it, so sorry, I'm obviously ignorant and didn't understand the significance of.
And we're saying this because you're here before us, a victim, but if we believe everything that was told to us when we told the then owner what the problem was, and they assured us, we cautioned them about full disclosure, what it is they need to tell the buyer.
So the meetings that we had that Joe was referencing were all recorded, are all recorded and available to you to get, so you can see and hear the testimony given at the meetings. It was all very public. There was nothing done behind closed doors. On the record, at the public hearing, the previous owner was told that the house was not in compliance and what had to be done to bring it into compliance. And we then learned at a later date that a deal had been struck between the previous owner and you. If you're sitting there telling us now that there was no deal struck, that you don't understand what happened, my humble opinion is go seek an opinion from another counsel. And I mean that in the most non-adversarial way. I just think that, I think you got jobbed.
Wow, okay.
So,
It's kind of shocking.
so,
When did you buy the house?
We bought it we closed in October of last year, and then I moved in January.
So you bought it in October of 2022,
Yes,
and you moved in January.
yes.
These hearings are in 2023.
I'm sorry, right, exactly, right. So
They weren't here in 2022, were they? Seems like it was more recent than that.
2023, January. I'm just trying to get a timeline here.
You say you bought it, or you put the offer in October?
No, we closed in October.
So
That doesn't match our dates.
December.
Doesn't really-
So you
gave them a
So
head-
So
That doesn't
Decem-
match our dates.
So
We have January, February,
Is this on
April,
the
and
open
June.
market, or is this a family member? Did you buy it for, it's like an
No.
arm's length transaction?
This was an open market.
Open market, all right,
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't know
Yeah.
them prior.
Yeah, so January 25th, 2023
Is when they first
is
came
when
to
we
us.
first,
85
they
85
first
Colonial?
came to
Yeah,
us for the
Yeah, so
COC.
that's 2 months after the fact, yeah. So we have a matter of violation. We have a house that we know with an order condition that's non-compliant. We've ordered them to come into compliance. We have to put a deadline on that, and the reality is, that separate conversation is a separate problem. If it was still the former owner, we would tell him, like we told him at that meeting. But I remember, it's decks. The decks have to come
Decks,
down.
it's.
Decks, an entryway, a patio, there was some, bunch of work
Yeah,
in the back.
and like a enclosed porch.
Yeah.
I think that we need to, at this
So,
point.
but that's the violation, that's why he's here tonight.
Yeah, so he's got to.
And we can work with
Have
him.
we, well, we can't do anything yet. Did you give him a copy of all the documents?
Well, what we did was give him all of the dates that this was discussed.
Yeah.
And let him know that, it's on, for public viewing.
Okay.
And, if they wanted the minutes or whatever, but, so it sounds like they bought it in October.
Yeah.
They must have known in October that the order was open and didn't have a certificate of compliance for the lot,
October of what year?
2020,
1 year ago, yes.
1 year ago, so 2022.
So all the meetings in 2023
Right,
were attended
Or
by
after
who?
the fact.
We're the owner.
Was with the prior owner,
yes.
seeking a certificate of compliance.
We had an
You-
open, legal agreement that they had to solve this problem before.
Okay, so they didn't. So this makes it easy. You had a legal agreement that required them to solve it.
Yes,
They didn't. So you need to go back and have that legal agreement enforced.
okay,
And then come to us.
okay.
Sorry.
Go to council, if any other advice,
Just
how I can handle this.
take the letter. Amy sent you a letter?
Oh, yeah, I have it right here.
Okay, yeah, you gotta take that and you gotta sit down with an attorney. We cannot advise you.
Okay.
I would amend the enforcement, what do you have?
It's a violation notice.
I would amend it that they put a deadline of the first meeting in May of 2024, that this be resolved, otherwise we're going to order that the property come into compliance.
Well, we have already
Well-
done that. We've already ordered it to come into compliance.
Well, no, not really.
we haven't.
No,
Not for-
we
not for
haven't.
Friday.
All we've had done, all that
motivation to
we've
get them
done
to
is
resolve
denied
this.
his certificate of compliance.
So the,
Give them 6
And
months to resolve
indicated
it.
that we
let me just
wouldn't-
ask, when the previous owner was here seeking a certificate.
Right.
And we denied it,
Right,
we were in essence saying to the previous owner, it's denied because it's out of compliance.
Right.
Bring it into compliance. That's
Right.
what we were saying. We were
That's
saying,
right.
bring it into compliance.
that's exactly right.
So we gave that directive to the previous
Right.
owner already.
And the previous owner said, let's try a after-fact modification, which you guys
Which-
gave them clear direction that you would not approve that. They asked for a continuance, went
they-
and
and they
did
engaged-
discussions with whoever, and then withdrew that modification.
They engaged into a deal with this gentleman.
I get, yeah,
And as far as we're concerned, they didn't go through with their end of the deal, it appears. We're not privy to what their agreement says. See,
Right,
we don't know
right.
what his agreement says
Right.
yet.
no, I understand.
We should probably get,
So the point I'm trying to make is,
yeah,
former owner's been put on notice, the current owner is on notice. There's no deadline, just floating out there, exactly to lose issue.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need to say, the town will, this commission will enforce the order of conditions, and that it must be brought into compliance, one way or the other, by whoever assumes responsibility by first meeting in May of 2024. Gives them 6 months. I don't want this thing to string on, have them just walk away and say, look, I got a mortgage, I'm not gonna
Yeah,
worry about it.
right.
I'm gonna get a homeowner's insurance policy, I'm not gonna worry, but I got everything I need, I'm living here, I'm gonna live here for 15 years in a non-compliant house. We can't do that, we have to give
Right.
them a deadline.
that's right, you're right. All right, so give them a
May,
deadline.
first meeting in May,
Just
2024.
say first meeting in May or sooner. So if they can bring it forward sooner, let them bring it
And
forward.
no
sooner.
later than.
No late, not later than.
And is that a plan to bring it into compliance, or is that having it in compliance by that
Well,
date?
right now, it needs to be brought into
Oh,
compliance.
it must be in compliance.
It has to be brought into compliance.
Before May?
Yeah.
Which really translates into removing the non-compliant structures. That's what it really translates in reality.
That's gonna happen anyways. What you do when your litigation with the previous owner is up to you, but just to give you a heads up, that stuff is gonna have to be removed.
So give them a chance to, go.
Second Wednesday in May is
So
May.
basically, they sold you a,
Don't say it.
Second meeting is,
Second
You gotta-
Wednesday
you
in
gotta
May
let
is
us-
May 8th.
okay.
what's
So
that?
May 8th?
No, I'm just curious how their house ever
Did you,
was built like that.
I have to ask this
But
question.
they built the additions without permits.
No, I think those were part of the original house,
No, they weren't.
I thought.
No, they weren't. That's exactly the problem.
The deck wasn't part of the house.
Well, he could be right. It could have been part of
There's-
the original house.
There was a,
Because
there was a deck that was cantilevered. That was approved by Mike Howard.
Okay.
Because the
Cantilever-
footings were outside the 50.
Right,
But then everything
It was an
else
open
got
deck.
built up around it and turned
And
into a
then he
much
built
bigger
another porch on
structure
the
with a
side.
porch and,
Okay, I got you.
so, I mean,
So
you could
after
probably
the
pare
fact.
it down to the original deck that got approved, but the rest of the stuff,
Would you just go forward, seek counsel?
Yeah.
And if you don't mind staying in touch with Amy, that would be good.
Yeah,
You have until May to resolve it,
Right.
no later than May.
Okay.
But I don't know if you have a mortgage or not. If you have a mortgage, I can't believe it got by the bank.
Yeah.
I'm in disbelief.
I guess I'm
Because the
clearly need
bank,
to
the
learn
bank
more.
requires a plot plan survey
Okay.
to see that the house is in
They
compliance.
do a title search. They
Well, they do a
verify
title
there's no
search.
outstanding
And they should,
encumbrances like an order
there
of
should have
conditions.
been a title search done, and was this recorded?
what?
None of our business. None of our
Yeah.
business.
I don't know.
Well,
But Evan, so I can give you all of the background information so that you know kind of where it all started.
Yeah.
You know, what the subdivision plan looked like, what the order of conditions said, and then what was that one part of the deck that was approved, and then, so just so you have all of
Yeah, that'd be
this
helpful.
history.
Do I have your email?
Yeah. Let me give you my card. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
all right, sorry.
Willingly took on the risks that Dr.
Thank you for
Warren-
coming in.
All right.
Okay.
Next one is 863 Winter Street.
Oh. Yeah, you guys
They
have
requested
to,
a-
actually, you have to amend the EO. You have to
I'm
actually take a
sorry.
vote. You didn't vote.
Was it notice of violation or?
It was actually a violation letter, so you have to vote to issue that enforcement order with that deadline
The previous,
for 85 Colonial.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Now the next one's 863 Winter Street.
All right, so Commission will recall at the last meeting, directing the homeowner and his consultant, Norse Environmental, to prepare a restoration plan for the incursion into the 25 and the 50 with the hardscape. We received an email from Norse Environmental asking for an extension. They are working on that plan, so they asked for continuance to the 25th of October.
So moved.
There was one thing I asked at that prior meeting, was that, just to give them some benefit of the doubt, is whether the conservation easement that they were offering, if it had any interest to our trail network, and did the Friends of North Andover Trails think that would provide a benefit?
No, you guys kind of,
Kinda
you
nixed
did,
that.
you
Even
walked,
just nixed it. Yeah,
you
'cause we-
nixed it, and I
Yeah.
explained it all in this letter.
Because there's no parking down on Winter,
It's-
it just ends on a street.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it really,
Got it, yep, you're right.
yeah.
That wouldn't be the only trail in town like that. May I just offer that as a comment?
The other thing, Amy, tell them that by the 25th, if we don't get any type of,
Yeah,
we're gonna start thinking about fines.
okay.
Because I know she was busy, but this enforcement order came out a
No,
long
I
time
know,
ago.
it's been a bit. So Al moved, was there a second?
Good.
Second.
All right, all in favor for the extension? Right?
Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay. All righty.
Next one, 196 Marble Ridge Road.
All righty, so the commission will recall, this is violation for installation of a drainage system in the wetland in the yard to make a drier yard. Commission required that all of the drain pipes and the catch basins be removed. The area of ditching within the wetland be refilled with the side cast. Plantings be installed, and seeding of wet mix and installation of wetland markers. They were able to finish all of those directives, and I visited the site a couple days ago and found, the site to be where it should be at this point. So now we're just, need a 2-year growing season for the shrubs to survive 75%, and I ordered that the erosion controls remain, that's biodegradable, so that's where we're at. So just an update, no action, we'll just revisit in fall of '25.
Next one is general business, 495 southbound on-ramp.
All righty. Okay. So on September 11th, there was a tractor-trailer rollover on the southbound on-ramp of I-495. That's next to the Shawshene. I was made aware of the spill on the 26th of September. Justine and I coordinated a site visit with Keith Sullivan, who is with Clean Harbors. We went out there on October 5th, got, a handle on site conditions. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're estimating that motor oil fuel in the range of like 70 gallons or so was released. Based on our observations, it does not appear that it got into the Shawshene, but it got trapped in the soil on the slope. And so the yellow line is existing erosion controls, those are about 35, 40 feet from the bank of the river. There is, obviously the tractor trailer took down a lot of vegetation, trees, kind of wiped it out in that area. So I invited Mr. Sullivan here this evening to give an overview of what they're thinking for the immediate response actions and to get any feedback from you guys. So I'm going to
All right,
I'm
for
gonna
the
hand
record, I'm Keith Sullivan, I'm Mass LSP, I'm with Clean Harbors. I'm also here on behalf of Regency Transportation. Let me just give you this other little printout. It's got a couple Mass DEP dates.
Just don't want you to trust.
Just give me a moment.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
We can't ask those kind of questions. I'm puzzled about that.
That was uphill.
Take one and pass it along.
So we're looking at an aerial photograph intended to discuss wetlands protection. We're trying to do it as accident reconstruction. We can't understand how the hell this happened.
Yeah, I don't fully understand it either. I believe the driver was okay. I just based on the angle, I think he was going up the ramp and didn't
Yeah.
cross over from 495. It's a very steep slope.
It's straight. But anyway, that aside,
So,
I'm sorry, we digress.
But, yeah, so it's a very difficult job site. You know, if you went out there, you'd see roots, you'd see a steep slope. It's slippery, it's loam. I went out there earlier this week with Clean Harbors Health and Safety. They're talking about, you know, any men that go down there would be wearing harnesses and be, you know, roping down, which I guess is a good idea. That seems a bit unusual to me, but then there's also, what is the approach we're gonna use to do the soil removal? It's a difficult spot. One idea that's floated is a large excavator, a long reach excavator. I don't particularly like that idea. If you're working on the far end of a machine, particularly with the long reach, it's tight quarters. So I'm more leaning towards a Vector and a hand dig. Also with the Vector and the hand dig, we won't over dig. So we're still early in the process. We just did some quick, you know, what measures could we do just to try to prevent some of the sediment from running down the slope? There is a little bit of a ravine forming on kind of the south side of that area. It's not big, but it'll get bigger. And I was just there, I think on Tuesday. So I think it rained between when we visited and Tuesday, because you can even see the silt fence is starting to bulge a little bit. So we're early in the process. It's a tough site. What we did is we went out with stakes just to come up with a quick grid pattern. On the back page, you'll just see what we call PID readings. Basically, it's a surface soil sample put into a plastic bag, and you screen it, and you get a quick reading on whether there's diesel there or not. And so, in essence, there are 5 small areas. It's not that big whole swath that needs to be remediated with respect to diesel, but there are 5 smaller areas. But it's kind of a wetlands project in that we have to put it back together. And so I need input from DOT on what spec they want for what kind of loom to put back, what kind of grass mix they might want, what kind of fabric we might use. So, I don't know, it just seemed like a good idea to come in, and I heard something earlier today described as a friendly enforcement. Maybe there's a friendly enforcement order that can somehow allow us to proceed quickly in this project. There are provisions under the IRA where you can go and get an emergency exclusion from some of the wetlands rules. So that's why I'm here. I'm trying to help this project along faster.
Jack, any questions?
No, I'm all in favor of containing contaminated soils and remediating them as quickly as possible, so I applaud your efforts.
So there's just, I put 2 dates in here because you folks were talking about dates. So when you have a spill, usually the first regulatory date from the state's point of view is day 60. So day 60 is November 10th. Day 120 is January 9th. You know, DOT I think is pretty quick. Once they get the IRA plan, I think they'll review it pretty quickly and get it back to us.
Okay.
We're gonna have to shut down the ramp. There's no way we can have a staging area and possibly work on that site, so we're gonna have to shut down the ramp. That's gonna be a kind of a public event. So if we go the hand dig approach, we'd want to be digging that before the ground freezes.
Right.
So if we have to go through an NOI, that's not gonna happen. So kind of looking for something that you could do that would help this job along, yet still ensuring that there are protections that you want to see. One idea I had, just chatting about it with Amy, and hearing about this koi log, I'd never seen one before. So maybe we could put one completely along the fence line. There is a a fence
Yeah,
that
there
the
is a
DOT
fence.
put down there to demarc their property.
Before you get
So
to the
perhaps we could put one or two at the end of that. That would be better than what we have currently. Perhaps we put, an additional silt fence that I've shown you on that little aerial. But it's just it's a problem site.
Let me ask a question, Joe. I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the crash occurred on September the 11th.
Yep.
You mobilized on the 12th,
Right.
but you were told you can't go there?
A DOT wanted to keep the ramp open, and even if the guys were going to use the hoses, they wouldn't have been able to do much. It's just it's too unsafe of a job, a work site right now.
So you got there on the 14th?
Yes, yep.
You had personnel go down to the water, actually go down to the
That
water?
was me. I went down to the
Did you
water.
fast rope down the hill? How'd you get down the hill?
I
No,
was
you
careful.
can go down. You just,
I was careful.
it's not, you can get down. It's just.
You can get
just
down,
gotta
but
be
when
careful.
you're dealing with a corporation that is
Yeah.
self-insured,
Yeah.
they take safety seriously. So
Yeah. Which corporation are we talking about?
Clean Harbors.
Yeah, okay. All righty. So your recommendation, based on your chart, is to dig out?
No, you'll see another report. You'll see
Yeah.
the IRA plan,
Yeah.
and that's gonna, this is just preliminary.
Yeah.
So the IRA plan isn't due for a little while, but I'm gonna try to get it done sooner. Typically, we wait to the full 60 days. We have so many jobs.
Yeah.
We don't always hurry up to get them in, but this one, I need to hurry up to get in.
So the distance from the spill site exactly, the distance to the water is what?
From the base of the slope, I'd say it's 50 feet,
50 feet?
probably.
700 gallons?
No, 70.
And here's the other,
70.
the other part of the story is
Yeah.
confirming the volume.
Yeah.
When I first went down there, I was expecting it to be worse.
Yeah.
Now, there were odors, you could smell odors when we were down there, but I thought it was gonna be worse. To me, it seems like some of the oil might have, I don't know if it was recovered and just not been accounted for, but, so we
This is
had.
the fuel that the rig
Correct,
uses to
correct.
run.
This is the
They're
side.
not hauling anything.
Yeah, the
No,
side,
no, no.
side
No,
saddle.
with water,
Poland
actually
Spring
water
water.
So the
bottles.
saddle tank.
Yeah.
Saddle tank and the
Each
saddle
tank
tank.
held 75 gallons.
That's what it
They
held.
had been using the truck for a number of days.
Yeah.
So they kind of figured maybe the fuel load was half filled.
Okay. I'm all set, thank you.
You said, the area you have lined out, it's just small sections of, it's not the whole area?
Yeah, no, it's not. If you look at the graphic on the last page, and just look at where you see numbers that are higher, say like 79, 35, 32, 16. The numbers that are like ones and twos, that's background. Where you have an elevated reading, that's an area where we're gonna excavate. And so I'm gonna give you a drawing that more clearly demonstrates where these 5 areas are.
Lou, it's the very last page. Very, very last
another
page,
page?
8.5 by 11.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that's the one.
And there's one other area at the base of the slope, actually even beyond the silt fence, where I did see that some of the saplings, if that's what they're called, they've died due to like diesel impact.
Well, what would you say,
Oh, okay.
what
so-
is the, you must have a number that the minimum, that you don't have to touch, right? It's
Say-
gotta be a certain number.
What's your threshold that you?
What's your threshold of,
You mean for what's clean?
like you have some circle, 35.5?
Oh, those are samples that I sent to the laboratory.
Okay.
So I do have those results. What we learned is that generally speaking, it's the top 6 inches of soil that's impacted. So this is not a major dig, it's just it's a surface soil problem.
But the whole area will have to be,
Well, if we have to reseed it, we're gonna have to, I think, get rid of all those roots. How do you put down geofabric if it's not flat?
oh, okay.
So I think we gotta, here's one of the things. Material that is like native, like trees, that don't have diesel on them, can we just cut that wood and leave it there in the woods? Or do we have to get that out? That's a question.
No, I would say you gotta take it out.
Is it contaminated?
No.
Yeah,
Like, look at that picture right there. You see roots coming up out of the ground? That's not contaminated, that's just something sticking up out of the ground. But we gotta get rid of that. We gotta be able to walk around and work. If we can just cut that and cast it aside, then we don't have to take it out and send it to a landfill. We can just leave it in the woods. It seems like a better destiny than taking it away.
How do you know it's not contaminated?
You'd use your senses. You can't test every single branch. You know, you touch it, if it feels greasy, it's contaminated. If it's giving an odor, it's contaminated.
So we don't want the wood to end up in the river.
You don't want it to end up in the river.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to help the beavers out in
Okay.
any way.
Ah, there you go, okay.
We'd rather not feed them or help
So
them.
you'd rather it leave the area?
I think so. I don't know if there'll be disagreement, but if you were asking me, I'd say please get it out of there.
Strip it
chop
all.
Chip it, whatever.
Yeah. They can do that. I was just thinking maybe it's easier to just leave it here. But if that's what we need to do, we'll do that.
We're trying to keep obstructions out of the river.
Okay.
They did some work.
There is a fence there, though, so it couldn't get through the fence.
Pile up on the fence? I don't know.
That's what I was just gonna ask. So you've got the ramp, the guardrail, the slope.
Yeah,
There's the right-of-way fence.
yeah,
And then behind that, still some more land.
about 15 feet.
Before you get to the top
Actual-
of the embankment.
Right.
Right.
And then the embankment drops off pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not much of an
So
embankment.
No,
nothing is
what do you-
beyond the fence. Everything is
Correct.
uphill from the
Correct.
fence. So it is all contained. So I think as far as the migration into the river and the potential of that, it is pretty negligible, but we don't want debris there.
Right.
Now, there is some opportunity sometimes to leave bigger woody stuff that you knock down as snag
There are
vegetation.
trees that-
as
they're-
snag habitat.
There's 2 trees that are at least this big that are there.
Yeah, but if there's any beaver activity or any potential for the beaver to drag that through the fence and into the river, we certainly don't want that.
Okay.
So if you talk about the bigger stuff that's not contaminated,
Yeah.
not broken up into logs, but lay it there
Yeah.
in such a way there may be a potential benefit there
Okay.
for that to happen. But anything that's like, just like the mess, like the roots and stuff, that really needs to be grubbed out.
You're talking about standing deadwoods.
Yeah, standing deadwoods.
Standing deadwoods, not a problem.
Okay.
Standing
Standing
deadwood's a tree that
uncontaminated.
is still in the ground,
Yeah.
but up and then cut,
Yep, yeah,
not a problem.
okay.
Yeah.
But if it's stained with oil, it goes.
Well, if it's stained, that's a different
Yeah,
story.
if-
But
Yeah,
I'm hearing,
that will go. Anything that's impacted is
my
gonna go.
understanding was, we're talking about non-stained
Yeah.
remnants. We're not talking about anything that's stained.
Right.
Amy, could you go back to one of the first pictures that I saw? Was the guardrail, and then
Right there.
the next one? No. Right there. So the guardrail, from the guardrail to the shrub line, that's where the shrub line is, that's clean?
No.
There's a little trail, I think when the tow truck pulled the wreck out, there's a waste oil trail, not a big one, that comes up to the guardrail. There's a patch, kind of in the center there, that's probably a 30 by 10-foot area that is a problem. There's, you can physically see the crankcase oil further deeper into that picture. That's another area. There's another smaller area down the slope, and then there's another one at the bottom of the slope.
Because looking at this, I mean, that doesn't look very far from the guardrail.
That's, right there is probably 15 feet.
15 feet?
Probably.
So with a rubber tire excavator, you could pull that stuff out of there.
Well, I don't know on that slope. I'm not a machine operator. So the people that have seen it, I mean, some of these guys have been around for a while. One fellow was saying, I mean, from the top of that guardrail to the bottom, it's probably a 50-foot vertical. And it's got to be 100 feet horizontal.
Yeah, but you're only scarifying the top layer of that soil.
Right.
So how are you vectoring that? I mean, I have a vector.
Yep.
How do you reach that far in?
What was described to me, I don't know if we would have to take out some of the guardrails, again, but using a Vactor with a boom, and I somehow
So
don't.
ground extension hoses?
Yes, yes.
So not just reaching over and backing out?
No, it would be on the ground as
Ground
well.
extension hoses?
Yes.
To me, a rubber tire excavator with a great old bucket, pull that stuff right out.
Well, that's been described, but that'd be the biggest grade all on Earth.
Not 100,
No.
not 70-foot
No
reach.
way.
That's
No way.
70 feet.
No.
Some of it
Yes.
would work, but not all of it. It wouldn't work
I
down the
mean,
bottom.
we'd have another spill on our hands because the thing would topple over itself.
No, but I'm saying that.
It's
that-
not,
That would not be anything
it would not be
you wanna-
good. No, I would,
The picture definitely doesn't show all of the.
Oh, it doesn't show it all.
No.
The other shot looking
it
up
does.
does.
Down, and after that, it drops off really quick.
Okay.
yeah,
That one, right there looking up, you can see,
yeah.
And there you're still
Yeah, see,
kind of, that's the
it's
top of the
farther,
slope.
it looks farther there than it did from the guardrail, the one that I shot, asked.
See, that's,
So my first deliverable to the client is the immediate response action plan. That's gonna describe how we're gonna solve this problem. So I can provide that to the commission. I can't promise it by next Friday, that would be my goal, but I can't promise it. By the following week, I probably would have it done.
Can I make another suggestion?
Certainly.
How about a small bulldozer,
Okay.
put it up on a pile, and have the grader load from up top, pick it up and load it on the truck?
Wait, say that again?
Take a small bulldozer,
Yeah.
scarify the areas that you need.
You mean going down the slope?
You would back it down and you would push it all up.
Push up.
Oh, I
You
see.
would push it all up
Okay.
and just, really just
Oh, that's
rub out
interesting.
6, 8 inches.
That's all you need.
Pile it at the top and then just load into the, into a truck and
Climb
pull it
that.
away.
Well, again, that's for an operator, that's, I can pass that idea on to others.
And your tracks are in the right way, because if you get a, if you're using a tracked bulldozer, when you backtrack it like that, you're actually creating ripples that are gonna slow the erosion down. It's gonna make that mat bite in better and revegetation go better.
All right, but the problem is we still have to get the dirt up and out.
Right.
So
You
we
still
need
need to
back-
load, you still need to load a.
Rubber tie
R back to it.
excavator,
Yeah,
pick it up, and
Load the truck.
load the truck.
that's, I mean, I'll,
That's
you
a,
know,
that's a,
I'll mention it to
On
others.
slope
That's not, I
like
don't do
that?
that, I don't run machines.
So the conversation we have is we wanna work with you timely,
Right.
yeah, you
right,
want
and prevent the NOI. but-
timely and,
What can we do for erosion controls and?
So we were snickering when you said, I was snickering when you said, clean harbors. We had a situation here on our own property in a resource area that was
knows.
not a
I'm
good,
He
familiar
knows.
with it.
it was not a
He
very
knows.
good
No,
operation.
it was unpleasant.
This is not in the wetland. This
Right.
is above the bank, and it's within a buffer zone.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a difference here, so, and it's a much lower level of release in total volume, potentially. And, so I think that this is something that we could probably do through an enforcement order, and friendly to the extent that we agree on how it's getting done.
Okay.
So if you can if you can come back to us and let us know what method you will use.
Okay.
I think we'd be more inclined to saying that enforcement order
Okay.
would allow that to happen.
Okay, very good.
But I think we're dealing with too much vagueness right now. I think we need a better definition of, because I think you got some good ideas, we got some good ideas.
Sure.
Together, I think we could probably find something that would fit within the shape of an enforcement order.
I appreciate that.
But if we don't reach that agreement, you're probably looking at an NOI, so I would work diligently to find a solution.
That's right.
because like you say, you have no idea how you're gonna do this, huh?
Well, no, there was
There's
really two
options.
options. My preference is for men with grub hose and targeting the area.
I agree
The
with that.
safety people were more like, if you have a bigger machine, you're not gonna have as many men down there, except for the one guy who's directing the machine, and that's a long reach.
That's a long reach.
And it's just not,
It's
I
very
don't really
scary.
like that.
I don't- I think it's
So-
the vacuum.
And that way it's safer for the workers too.
Yep.
They can be tied off.
That a small
It's
little
less
bulldozer, a
disturbance,
D3,
too,
would
overall.
have that done in 2 hours.
The wrong guy going down the hill backwards puts it right in the river.
They don't know.
I've had enough experience with
I haven't run a dozer in 25 years, and I could do this.
I'm no kidding. I can do that with my Bobcat.
It's like a 40-degree angle. It's pretty steep.
It's steep, you guys, it's steep. These pictures don't really,
You've got some old timers that have done
oh,
some
whatever.
scary stuff.
I know,
I only know one guy that would
You know
try
what
it, and
I
I
want.
wouldn't ask him to.
so, whatever.
Dickie
Danny.
Malucci taught me run a
All right, so let's
Danny.
keep on, come on.
Oh, more,
Can we
yeah.
keep on task, please?
Easy, huh?
Revisit on the 25th?
Okay.
Okay.
Can we send them with preferences? I mean,
We can't get this done before the 25th? We
I
can't
don't
just
know.
give an enforcement order and say, go ahead and do it?
Administratively, sure. He's not gonna have his plan until the Monday of that week.
Yeah, I don't want to
anyway.
wait meeting to meeting. I think if you have a plan, share it with Amy, talk with Louie and I, if you guys let that happen. If we reach some sort of agreement that makes sense from a process perspective, I think
Just
we can give you a go-ahead to authorize. you to do
issue
it.
an enforcement order.
How many square feet is that, the whole site?
Well, let's just say the impacted area, I think it's probably about 600 or 800. The whole area is probably, what is it, can we do the math in our heads? It's like 120 by 40, maybe?
And you're
So
gonna,
like 5,000
you
square
think you're
feet?
gonna do this by hand?
Huh?
You think you're
No,
gonna do
but
that by hand?
Just some, it's loom, there's
That's
like a
4,000.
6
That's
inch.
a tenth of an acre. It's nothing. That's nothing.
All right,
Do
well,
it by
so,
hand?
No. I'm saying that as far as the impacted area.
Yeah.
It's like a half a day's work.
Yeah.
But with the machine.
And enough men.
Right. All right, so continue to the 25th, but in the meantime, if an IRA comes across my desk, I share it with,
And we have to make a motion to authorize you to do
authorize you
that.
to issue an enforcement order to allow for it, to allow the work to. Do we want coir logs at the base of the fence, or biodegradable mulch sock,
We want,
or,
well, we want sufficient erosion control at the bottom.
yeah.
And the fence being an additional 15 feet away, is it impacted, is it soil area right up to the fence, or is it?
No, no,
So it's
it's
15
not.
from the river to the fence, and
Right.
then another
Right.
distance
Yeah,
above the fence?
yeah.
With that
There's
slope,
one,
you're
there's
gonna
one,
need
there's
something
one lobe that, I mean, to be
pretty
honest, we need to
substantial.
do some more assessment, right? When you're actually working and digging, you learn more. So there's only so much you can do in 2 days, right? So, but I think there's another area at the base of the slope, again, where those little dead trees were, that's probably, again, 20 feet from the fence, and then the fence is probably 15 feet from the, to the river. So-
35, so we would typically say no disturbance of 20. So I would say put the core logs at the 25, no disturb. Because it doesn't like they need to get any closer than that. They can even put them further away, but not any closer than 25.
And how about installing them? Can we cut, like, there's like little trees all over the place. I mean, if to install it, do we have to weave it in between everything, or can we cut stuff down?
So the good thing about core logs is they're flexible. The bad thing about core logs is they're heavy.
Right.
Let them put up against the fence. And put up against the fence.
Yeah.
Is there
I
another
mean,
product
because
we
they-
can do
Against the
that's
fence.
smaller, that would be easier to work with? Like, that's still biodegradable?
Well, we gotta get it to
Well-
work.
When you get that disturbance and you get that slope.
Well, whatever you
can-
use,
I
let
would
it be
say-
biodegradable,
I would say core logs it right along the fence.
yeah.
What do they weigh?
Well, you can get different diameters,
Okay.
but they're pretty dense. They're a dense log.
Does
I'm
one
sure
weigh
you,
50
I'm sure your
pounds?
company's dealt with them before.
How much?
Do they weigh 50 pounds? Like,
50 pounds per foot.
oh, really?
At 12 inches.
Well, isn't there a kind of wattle we could use instead? Something that's not so heavy?
You have to stake it in, but maybe that's not a bad option.
we could do that.
Maybe that's not a bad option.
And there's
A straw
biodegradable.
wattle, are you talking about?
wattle,
Yes. Straw wattles.
Like a
Without
10-inch
the,
diameter, something like
yeah,
that?
I'd want 12 inch.
Yeah, a 12-inch core log is gonna be about 25 pounds per foot, so, and they come in 20-foot, 30-foot lengths, so you.
That's
I mean,
horrible to
you're-
move.
You're dragging an anaconda down there.
So 12-inch straw wattle, biodegradable without the plastic netting, and staked in.
Well, if you had a little bulldozer, he could bring it down there for you.
So let's take I mean, getting late, let's
Yes,
try
it
to
is
take a shot at formulating what the ZO looks like. So I think that enforcement order needs to allow the work to occur. It needs to first stabilize and control erosion and migration of silt into the river. It needs to allow handwork to occur. It needs to allow the opportunity for the applicant to express to the administrator what mechanized work they would do for the permanent cleanup that would be approved by members of this commission to authorize her administratively to let that happen. And then lastly, would be to restore the disturbed area. Now, silent in all that would be what you do with the debris and the roots and stuff, but I'm simply gonna say that the area be cleaned up to the satisfaction of the Conservation Commission administrator. Maybe some trees can stay, maybe some branches can stay, maybe some stringy spaghetti roots need to come out regardless. The contaminated woody material has to come out. But I'll leave that, but I think if we frame that order, I think we're onto a direction that might make some sense. And timing on this, I mean, you guys are as anxious as we are to get this done. But I mean, your goal is to deal before the frost sets in. So is it unreasonable if we gave you a deadline to have final restoration done by January 1st?
I don't think so. Not at all.
Okay,
Because the day 120 is January, you might as well just stick with the other due date. January 9th is day 120.
And that's when it has to be done.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but that's, when you go beyond 120 days and you're submitting reports, you have to give the state an additional $1,400 after day 120. So you might as well, if you can be, if you can get it done a day earlier, you save your client some money. So if you made your order coincident with that date.
Because we won't meet in January, we won't meet till the second week in January, correct? So that would be too late, that would take you beyond that date. So let's just say by January 1st,
Okay.
2024. Do we need any restoration? Because it's all buffer zone.
Yep.
So we don't.
Riverfront area though, too?
It's riverfront.
Yeah.
It is.
Riverfront, yeah.
So,
It needs
yeah, I
to-
mean,
Do
we
we
need,
need monitoring and, growing seasons? We don't need anything of that sense. We need restoration of the slope,
we need stabilization of the slope
but we don't need
with
habitat,
seeding and, no,
wetland plantings, do we? Oh.
no.
No, not if it's
We
on
just need something that's gonna stabilize that slope because it's so steep. And I'm sure Mass DOT,
native seed mix.
Yeah.
There's tons of erosion control seed mixes made for roadways.
But when is its planting time? Is it gonna grow if you plant it in?
Well, that's,
You're
I
at
think
the end of the window. Yeah, I mean, the reality is, you're probably gonna spray tackify this to get through the winter and whack with this, hit the seed and re-tackify in the spring.
Help me with that word, tackify?
Basically, it's tacky, it's sprayed corn product.
Okay.
That's like a vegetative glue that holds the slope in place. It'll get you through the winter.
Okay.
Anybody who does hydro seed does a tackifier. Sometimes they mix them together. So you're not getting, the seed you put in now would just rot.
Right.
You're beyond that.
Okay, so we're all good?
But then we allow that type of work to be
Okay.
done, and then a reinspection, the final reinspection for the order to close out would be sometime, late next spring or beginning of the
into
summer.
yep, okay. Okay,
And compliance is if it's growing.
right,
If it's growing, that means
yeah,
you've reached your goal.
yep,
Okay.
okay, yep,
So we're good?
Make that in the form of a motion.
okay. Joe motioned that.
Debate?
Any more questions?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a calendar, but I think we should just approve the 2024 calendar as drafted.
I don't think there was any change again.
We never changed it.
All right, I don't have the meeting dates ready for you for 2024, but I will
Won't
next.
be here the second week in August.
Oh, okay. All right, so we have decision for Merrimack College, and that's all, and then
Can I leave?
signature pages.
Show that I'm not involved in this.
Okay, yep,
I'm gonna leave the room for a minute while you.
okay.
I only have one question.
Do we have a draft decision? Or
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
We have the bond.
So adding,
Where in the preamble, in the submission of documents, do we have they lied to us twice?
yeah,
You have that here?
yeah, it's on the second page.
I wanted to appeal it.
Huh? Good.
Yeah, it's good. Good job, Amy. So with regard to dewatering,
Yes, dewatering, let's see, prior to construction, dewatering.
I would specifically say that the Conservation Commission does not approve of the discharge of the silt sack to the piped stormwater system. and that the silt sack should be discharged to a flat grassy area contained by hay bales and cleaned up when the need is over, when the project is over. Dumping it in the pipe completely defeated the purpose of it.
So the plan should be revised to show it.
VHP?
VHB, right?
VHB.
You gotta remember, we haven't.
And so we want them to submit that to you as a pre-construction,
Yep.
At the meeting. Is it gonna be a pre-construction meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, good.
Oh, yeah.
That's him, huh? Okay, gotta write that down. He's so qualified.
Okay, in a fully grassy area.
Reminds you of the 2-year Mass DOT engineer.
Okay, all right, and then we said plantings,
Restoration.
Restoration
and a little
planting.
Mitigation. plan.
mitigation planting.
That's pre-construction.
Did we nail down that location at the front entrance, or do you want that as part of the pre-construction as well?
Maybe they could give me a sketch plan.
Actually, they offered that location on
Right,
their own.
right, so.
Yeah, they just submit that, a detail of where exactly and what it is they're proposing.
Yep,
I don't think the bond is enough.
and then what I'd like to do also is put no stockpiling signs in front of that mitigation planting area.
We could double that.
I think the bond should be 5,000.
It is, but we already got 2,900.
It's actually 4,900, isn't it?
But we already got 2,900.
That's okay, I still think we should have the bond, 5,000.
I think the bond is fine.
That planting location would work.
I think so.
I don't
Yep.
think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think the bond is enough.
Oh, the bond isn't.
They gotta do the planting plan. They gotta do the development plan. They gotta- I still think we avoid
It's
saying.
a pretty simple project.
Yeah, I look for the potential for impact, which is what we're bonding. It's flat area, it's, all buffer zone, outside of the no disturb. I think 2,000 is pretty good.
I agree.
You think it should more too?
No, I
You don't?
think
You agree with 2,000 is enough, yeah.
You guys are hard. You get an opportunity.
No, I want to do more, but unfortunately, I think 2,000 is the
You
right
said you
number.
want them to appeal.
No, I want them to appeal the fact that we told them that they lied. Because it's right in the document, they have to file the registry.
Well, it's part of our findings. Any others?
They gotta
Any
come
other
before us again.
revisions or additions or?
Wetland markers?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want it to
You
be on
got
the
the
fence.
dewatering, right, Joe? You covered the dewatering.
We did cover the dewatering.
Yes, we
yeah.
do, we have that. Is that it?
That's it.
Motion?
Motion.
Move to issue the order of conditions for 242-1874 as drafted and amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Sorting through.